Chew.
Hey guys, what's
Hey,
up?
not much. How you doing?
There's a bunch of people in already. Hey T Nova, how's it going, buddy? Claude, how's it going, everybody? Okay, one sec. I gotta mute the other stream. So yeah, we're just gonna be having a stream about pretty much the current events tonight. Probably discussing the New Zealand terror attack, other news, and just whatever comes up or whatever the chat brings up, and we'll be interacting with everybody. But I'm on tonight with Fredrick, Godzilla, Menckin. He's been on my channel a few times already. I'm sure you guys have seen him before. You can go to his channel, check him out. The link is in the description below already. And also we're on with his buddy Chris Gunderson, right?
Yeah.
And he's just a good buddy of his. And we're going to be talking about the current events, and maybe we'll do something like this weekly or whatnot, whether we all have the time and whatever. But starting off, did you guys have anything you were wanted to bring up specifically, Fredrick or Chris?
Well, I wanted to talk about, obviously, the biggest topic of this week is in New Zealand, right? What happened in New Zealand at the what's it called? Christ Church, which is weird because apparently Muslims are praying at that church, and so it's a Church of the Christ. Anyway, besides the point. So there's been a flurry of accusations and people blaming other people, and I wanted to really talk about that. I was expecting to have. So, you'd already talked about having a weekly, and I wanted to kind of set this up, and it went horribly long. So I apologize to all the folks that are joining in now. I was just trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
So it'll be
he's practically
next
boomer, so you got to give him a break. He's almost there. Just barely.
It's the bagged milk. I blame it on the bagged milk. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But go ahead.
So, anyways, we'll get the kinks worked out. So I know what the issue is, right? And hold on a sec. I'm getting a reverb here. Let me just mute something. Yeah,
but speaking about what you were saying earlier about people blaming each other, I've noticed that already, and I've noticed a lot of people blaming like Faith Goldie, and I see a lot of the left. Already going to Andrew Scheer and being like, you need to denounce Faith Goldie and all of this crap because you shared a platform with her. But not only that, I've seen people even from like the PDC and stuff. What's his name? Frank made a video today. And I thought that, he kind of called out Faith Goldie there and said that she is somewhat like responsible. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was kind of condemning her and being like, oh, it's white nationalist types like this that, make it harder for us to have a platform. But, it's like these people, they're falling into a trap. Like the leftists, you're never going to appease them. It's not Faith Goldie's fault and the right wingers' fault, because I've seen this whole same thing play out in the whole skeptic community. If you ever paid attention to these guys, they were like, people like Jeff Holiday and whatnot. A lot of people probably don't know who I'm talking about. They're like, oh, the people like Andy Worski and JF, because they're platforming the alt-right, that's going to get us all banned and this and that. When in reality, the real blame is YouTube, Google, the journalists that are trying to get all these people deplatformed. It's like, be mad at the people that are against freedom of speech instead of people that are using their speech and saying things that maybe you find detestful or you don't agree with, right? And also, one thing that I noticed in his video from Frank, he was saying that if you say, because this is one of the things he had an issue with Faith Goldie, is that if you say, was the ultimate, this is what was going to happen because of immigration, because of mass immigration. It's not because you're not condoning the attacker, you're not justifying his actions. You're just saying, hey, if there's a hole in the boat, it's going to sink. If there's a fucking boulder tipping over an edge, it's going to roll over and kill all those people. You're not a bad guy for pointing that out. And you're not justifying the action of it either. But I see people saying like, oh, you're justifying the action by saying that, oh, this is the government's fault and this is the media's fault. When in reality, it is. It is that guy's fault, of course, too. He shouldn't have done it. But we can't ignore the circumstances. Like, I'm willing to admit, if we bomb people in Pakistan's homes and kill their relatives and people that they know, there's a good chance they may become an ISIS soldier because they're like, you killed my whole fucking family. So, it's kind of the same thing that is going on in Western countries. We're being ignored, we're being gaslighted. And of course, some crazy people are going to go out and do some crazy shit. And us saying that's going to happen eventually isn't condoning it or saying that it's a good thing. It's just pointing out reality. But sorry, I went on a kind of a huge rant there. Go ahead if you wanted to bring up anything else to interject.
So let me ask Chris. Chris, have you had a chance to go through that guy's manifesto?
No, I have not gone through Manifesto.
It's a big slog. It's 75 pages long.
It's a whack jobby one.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. It's quite clever. You might even say it falls under Poe's law, whether if the person's really trolling you or not. It starts off bringing up some of these very nationalistic poems. It goes into his motivations, why he did what he did, and then he brings up PewDiePie, Candace Owens as being inspirations. He says he likes Trump, and he mentions immigration is an issue. Obviously, that seems to be the roundabout. He says why he's chosen the Muslim community to attack, but it could be any community. So it's hard to say. It's something that I anyone could write down in a 20-pager. I mean, I think he just spilled out his guts, and 75 pages is a little bit too long to go through, but it doesn't sound like he's crazy or anything. I think he's very self-aware.
Right. I agree. I don't think he was insane or anything like that, maybe psychopathic or whatever, but I don't think he was crazy. He was in his right state of mind. He knew exactly what he was doing. He said that he could have written, he was going to write 300 pages or 270, but he, crossed it down to about 70 pages. And there was a bunch of stuff in there that was truth, like his truth, what he was saying, what he really believed. And a lot of it was purposely inserted in there because he's trying to get the left to react, to try to take away gun rights. And he said it, and it's the funny thing is, or really bad thing is, the media itself, that they've read it. They've read the manifesto, and all those people read the part where they're like, oh, the media is going to take this and try to take away gun rights and freedom of speech. They're going to
it's the ultimate troll.
So the media knows this, and they're reading this, and they're like, I agree. We should accelerate things. So they're just as bad. And this is why they're like, oh, don't read the manifesto. Mm-hmm. Don't read this. Don't read that. Right. Because, and a lot of it, he mentioned PewDiePie. He used an AR-15 type weapon on purpose because he knew that then the people in America would be like, oh, the AR-15, everything was planned out. It took him like 2 years to do this. So, it's pretty crazy, and he wanted us to suffer. He wanted the right to feel more alienated, to get censored even more, so then they would retaliate at some point. But go ahead.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect the media to want people to learn things for themselves and use their own minds. Why would they want to give up that power of being the interpreter of all things? So of course they're not going to send people to try and find this person's manifesto and read it and make decisions. in whatever way they want to decide, but making those decisions for themselves. They want to be the interpreter and the shaper of opinions for people. So what you're saying there, AJ, doesn't surprise me at all in terms of their interpretation of things.
Well, reading it would fucking red pill a lot of people to some extent. And I do think that it will inspire some people to do the same thing. That doesn't mean we should censor it, because there's always going to be crazy people that are going to do this shit regardless. But I could see somebody reading those words and being like, yeah, you know, he's right. We need to accelerate this thing because, you know, nobody's going to fight for us, blah, blah, blah. And you will see more of this happening because nothing is being done about immigration. It really, really comes down to that at the end of the day. And, you know, I see a lot of signs of the left starting to take notice of this and start to try to quell it, right? You see that Yang guy that's getting really popular, you know, that Asian guy in America that is talking about, you know, white people and you know, meth and, you know, their birth rates and stuff. But really, you know, I seen this one thing about him, and this one thing, and he was saying that he's only worried about this because he's worried that one day white people will go and start putting Asian people in camps like they did the Jews when they start getting worried about, you know, they start getting more antsy. But you know, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like there are going to be some crazy people that, because nothing is being done about the onslaught of immigration as being sent into our country, they're going to react. And us saying that isn't promoting it. Like, so I really didn't like that Frank Vaughan's video, because at the end he's like, oh, it's, you know, these people and they should just have more kids, right? They should just have more kids. And you're like, it's not going to work. I agree that you should have more kids, but just that alone
never work
to do anything.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It cannot work because it's. Let me allude to the subway situation in Toronto. So they're building on more lines, they're building more services to provide the public, because there's just too many people. It's clogged all the time. There's delays on the subway, there's always breakdowns. It's an old system. But it doesn't matter how many subways you build if you have an influx of continuous people coming in. So you can build as many subways, you will never catch up. You will always be behind to service the amount of people that are coming into the city. So the same thing applies in terms of having kids. If you keep telling people white people have kids, but you're seeing the economy going down, wages are stagnant for the last 20 years, you're not seeing any of your fortunes increase or your standard of living increase. In fact, it's going in the opposite direction. You know, new couples that want to have a family would like to get into a home. They can't because they're being priced out. And then you have an influx of people that are coming in that have a higher percentage. On average, it's like 4 to 6%, right? So I don't know.
So Fred,
it wouldn't work.
So Fred, you mentioned, you know, and actually there's a comment here in the chat. I think it was Earl Cannonberry who said that Europeans will never outbreed the third world. No, I don't think the first world. I'm going to modify that a bit. I don't think the first world will outbreed the third world, but the people from the third world who are bringing that mentality to the first world are breeding away. So in the interim, what do we do? What do we do to stem the tide? Because people are coming here and they're not acclimatizing to first world customs. And frankly, some of them are coming here with a mission, they believe, from their higher power, that this is what needs to happen, and they will kind of take over one way or the other, whether that's through breeding or politics or other means.
Right. And what I don't like also is this application of like this perpetual growth model, but to countries, right? It's like we need to continuously grow, like a corporation, how they want to continuously grow. Right. But oftentimes that doesn't work out for the corporation. It's not sustainable. And they're doing the same thing here in Canada. They're like, oh, we just need to continuously grow. And that's the assumption where it's like, do we even need to have as many kids to have a replacement rate. Like, what if we just had 1 or 2 kids for the next little while? Like, whereas that's probably how things should go. Does it make sense for a planet that has finite resources, for the people on that planet, for a life form to continuously expand? You know, it's like, we're not rabbits, right? We're not some R selected or K selected, I forget which one it is, that is like the rabbits. You know, they just breed and breed and breed, eat up all of the resources, then die through famine, right? It's like, you know, we should be smarter than that. But, you know, we're under this assumption, oh, we just need to keep growing. And if we don't import these immigrants because you're not having enough kids for population replacement rates, we need to do this. It's like, no, we don't. We can have less people. our economy can take a hit. And also, it's because of socialism. It's because of pensions. It's because of all these promises that the government is promising people, money that they don't have, that they need to constantly import immigrants to keep kicking the can down the road, because they have to wait too long for your babies to grow up to become taxpayers. Because that's the problem. That's why they're like, if you think that having kids is going to solve the issue, you don't know what the fuck is going on. You don't understand that they don't want to wait for your kid 20 years to grow up to become a taxpayer. They're going to import these people. So at least there's some 18-year-old working right away, maybe not paying too much, but it's still enough money to keep the system going. You know, it's just a Ponzi scheme. Mm-hmm. And if they stopped immigration, if they stopped importing all these people, everything would collapse. And they know that. So they need to keep importing these people just to keep the illusion that the system is working, that it's still going. But this is all fueled by socialism. If we didn't have this socialism and all of this shit, they would have no argument to bring in anybody. We wouldn't need it, and it would be fine if we had less people.
I think that's a big lie. If you don't mind, I'm going to screen share for a sec and just show you what I'm looking at so the folks can see. So let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So this is a healthy breakdown of an age demographic group, right? This is New Zealand, and you want a nice, big, heavy base of babies. So as these babies go through their years of work, let's say there's university years, then they start getting into the workforce around this area. That's where they're going to be contributing, and you want the pool of aging people coming slowly together. The problem is that our countries are looking like this, right? It's lopsided.
Yeah, as long as you have socialism, you need that to happen. You need more kids to fuel the socialism.
Well, okay, so we'll get to that in a second, right? But this is what we have in this incident. And China is exactly like this. They have a similar issue. They have an aging gap of, they have a huge age gap between the older population and the population that's currently between the ages of 25 and 35. And they actually have to tell, because they don't have a very, although they say they're socialist, they're not, right?
They had a one-child policy for a lot of years, though.
They had and the abortions went through the roof. And because of that one-child policy, right, what happened is you had a ton, right, but you had the preference for boys, and they murdered a lot of girls. And what's happened is, and it doesn't hit the news, because last year it's hit the news a few times, but it's been predominantly a big issue. So we see a shooting in New Zealand, everybody fucking loses their mind. They forget that what's been happening in the Philippines in terms of the Muslims there. And in January, when they ran through a church and just gunned down all of the church parishioners, the Christian church parishioners, no one talks about that. And no one talks about what's happened in China, where these guys, they're so frustrated because they can't find a woman, they'll go into like kids' grade schools and start hacking them with machetes. Because they're so frustrated. They have such a disbursement between men and women. There's more men, and in the men. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
So I mean, I know you kind of speak on taking socialism completely out of the equation. I agree to an extent, right? Because at some points, people are going to want to be social. Communities work together for their benefit. I think the discussion really should be here is the limit or moratorium on immigration, period. Because
Right. But the thing is that in order to pay for all of this shit, they do have kind of an argument when it comes to paying for this stuff. Because if you look at pensions in Canada, they only have like 1/5 of the amount. They have something like 200 million apparently of the pensions at once they're withholding. They're supposed to have about $1 billion. So right away, that's a Ponzi scheme. But it's like, I understand your reluctance to maybe get rid of it, but I don't want to not help people, right? I still think that we could have alternatives that can come and help people, and we're just kind of assuming that we need the government to provide a lot of these different resources, whereas maybe we can keep some around to provide some, but ultimately it is the overabundance or the large state that is a driver of immigration. And you're looking at the population rates and you're like, we need to have this, like we need to have this many kids so then we can support the aging population. And that is completely true if we continue using this model that we're using right now, like democracy and, like the kind of, the mixed system we have that's like a mix between capitalism and socialism, where we have capitalism, but then we socialize the profits and kind of create some social programs and whatnot. But ultimately, like these systems always collapse. They don't work. They're inefficient. They're more costly than what oftentimes the free market can provide. If you look at potentially like healthcare, and if you're looking at America as a version of free healthcare, that's also not a good example. There aren't many good examples, but even with the little bit of free market healthcare that America does have, they are at the forefront of typically advancements in healthcare. A lot of people from Canada fly there to get help, etc. But I think we think we need it. Whereas it's like, no, we don't necessarily need it. And it's okay if we have less people, because if you think about it, there's more white people today than there ever has been on the face of the planet. There's about almost 1 billion white people. So that's not really a problem. It comes down to proportions, how much proportionally there is white people to other people within our countries. And why are these groups outbreeding us? Right? Is it because, like, let's just say there was an actually free market where we're not giving money to the third world, where we're not where we don't have huge regulations on our industries, so then we're forced to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. Let's just say that didn't exist because we had more of a free market. Now we wouldn't be buying money from Saudi Arabia, so they would actually be a lot poorer than they are now because all of their wealth is dependent essentially on the oil trade. Africa's population wouldn't be increasing because we wouldn't be giving foreign aid to these people. Our own populations of the lower classes, whatever, wouldn't be increasing either because we wouldn't be having socialism going to single mothers to have 5-6 kids on welfare and then breeding a cycle of people completely dependent on the system, which is increasing more and more. We wouldn't have the government giving people medication and drugs to eventually get them hooked on meth. And then now we have this huge problem with meth and all this other stuff to deal with. Like, and then those people would actually be having kids instead of being junkies on the street, breaking into people's homes and beating them with sticks to death, like what happened in Winnipeg recently. So it's like, there's so much of our money going to increase other people's groups and less going to us. And that all is because we have the government. And we're never going to, especially now, vote for somebody who is going to take our interest, who's going to have our interest in mind. That's why I do support more Maxim above anybody else, because at the very time being, he says more. And I like the way he responded to the latest New Zealand stream, or New Zealand attack, compared to the other people like Andrew Scheer. But yeah, sorry, I'm taking up all the space here. Go ahead if you wanted to interject there.
I'll jump in. I think one challenge I have with both proponents of capitalism and socialism, and I'm sure there's something in the middle that we're not seeing here, but they both seem to leave out this major thing that seems to be the downfall of both, which is inherent people looking out for their self-interests and greed. And that's basically what it comes down to. Socialism, you see these countries, and yeah, it should be, okay, you know, I make $50,000 and I get it from the government, and yes, I stamp a piece of paper, and you, AJ, make $50,000 for the government, or, you know, you get your 3 bowls of gruel a day, whatever you want to say, and then maybe you know, you're the CEO or something, who knows. But what always happens is the same in socialism, is the same thing that happens in capitalism, which is the people, the 1%, 3%, whatever, take most of the profits, most of the money, and leave the people with very little or nothing. And there becomes this huge gap of wealth. So both systems are interesting in theory, but in practice, the greed is what gets you. So my concern with with taking down the role, I agree with you that the role of government in Canada is way oversized and needs to be massively downsized, not just in Canada, but in the first, I'll keep it to the first world. I think the first world needs to stick together and kind of get its act together about certain things. If you have one crack in the wall, any Game of Thrones fans coming in another month and a half, but a month to go until Game of Thrones, you get that crack in the wall, and all of a sudden you get the stream coming through. So we kind of need to unify in that regard. But I think that, one sec. So, but I think that the government can serve a role in terms of potentially, and this is too pie in the sky, I know, but potentially being that massive force that can head off corporations and balance that out. If you allow the corporations to have too much power, you're going to run into the same situation we're having now. The difference is government theoretically is supposed to take care of those who corporations will leave behind because it's not profitable to do so. Corporations have to act in their best interest, in interest of their shareholders. Right. It's what they do. That's what
everybody does.
Exactly.
Right? Everybody does that. And that's the thing. That's the great thing about capitalism, that it takes advantage of people's natural instincts of profiting themselves, right? And it's not a bad thing, you know, to like, the thing is like we have to understand, and I think you understand this by what you're saying, that like, you know, greed is the problem, right? Greed is the problem, and humans will always be greedy, right? There's never going to be a point in time that humans will not be greedy, okay? So when you have a government, that you're now creating another system on top of the free market system, whereas corporations, which only exist within the government, because corporations are granted special freedoms that do not exist within the free market, right? If you have a free market, there is no such thing as a corporation. These came into existence later on, and it's like a corporation now is considered a human being, and you can't sue them directly. You can't sue anybody in there directly. They can get away with murder.
Which is
so that is not the free market, and that is.
So guys, I gotta jump in. Hold on a second.
But no, hold on.
I want you to define free market.
That is only granted to them by the government, and like I was saying before, though, is that humans are always greedy. And they're always seeking power, right? So if you create a government, that's never going to go away. You're never going to get a person in there that is not greedy, that is not going to eventually give away a lot of power. So if you know that people are like this, creating a government and giving it lots of power, you're now just going to incentivize bad people, psychopaths. This is why they overrepresent themselves in politicians and positions of power, because that's like a big pile of shit for flies to go fly to. And they're always going to go there. Always the worst people are always going to be the politicians. because the only people that want power over you are bad people. I don't want power over you. You probably don't want power over me. So we don't seek these positions. It doesn't appeal to us to go and do and divvy out resources to companies like SNC Lavalin that we like, because they'll scratch our back, we scratch their back. Like, that's not a free market. You know, we don't have a free market, you know, first of all. So like we're looking at things like, and we're blaming the free market when it's not the free market. We've been working in a system where the government is picking winners and losers since the very beginning of Canada, and it's only gotten worse as time has gone on. But go ahead, Fredrick. Interject with what you were going to say.
Well, before we continue, let's define what you think a free market is.
Well, a true free market has not truly existed yet. That's like with no government whatsoever influencing the invisible hand of the free market, which is just a bunch of individuals trading voluntarily. You know, that's what capitalism is. It's just me and you trading voluntarily, and me owning property, you owning me, us respecting these things. Like, it's not, it doesn't mean corporations. And it's like, you know, people are under the assumption that corporations are always going to monopolize without the government, but we already have monopolies, and we have governments. We've had governments, and they haven't done a thing.
That's because, hold on a sec, we haven't done shit about it, because we the very people running these companies are in government. They're in cahoots. They're working together. They're coercing.
And that will always happen.
Look, it's not a mystery. The government had to get involved. I think, what was it? Who was the biggest? I think it was GE, the biggest light bulb maker. It was in the 60s. The government had to step in because there were collusion with another manufacturer of light bulbs. They were fixing it. Was, well, hold on a sec. They were fixing the price. But let's say this. Let's imagine. Let's play an imaginary role here. We have free, right? No government. There's no government. Are we saying there's no government?
Yes. There's no government. So the only way that a company can get you to buy something is to entice you to buy it. Right now, they look at the TELUS companies in Canada right now. Why do we get such a fucking bad deal? Because they don't allow outside competition from other people. So then they get a monopoly. They can make sure Faith Goldie doesn't get a platform where everybody else does. And then the government and them are working in cahoots because the government creates a monopoly for them. So then they can later say, hey, it's a free market. Oh, it's you know, we're not impeding on your freedom of speech. It's them. But that only happens.
All right. So you brought up a point where you talk about greed. It's a vice. You're never going to get rid of it, right? On a personal scale, individual scale, and on a grandiose scale. People, and you know, to that movie Wall Street, where Gordon Gekko says greed is good, right? He has a point, because it is in fact a certain motivator, right? It helps. Greed is pushing a lot of people to get into better positions, more education, so they can acquire more, whatever that is, knowledge, being a big guy, or just having tons of money. But if you were to get rid of all government and you just had, let's just call it businesses, right? Because we're not going to have corporations. What makes you think? So who hold on. Yeah, but I want to go there. What happens? Because government has three main roles. Now we've eliminated it. What role will a business take to mitigate a remedy or a wrong to another individual? Because contracts are not going to go away when the government goes away. There's going to be business agreements, right? But no one's going to hold to it.
No,
okay, so no one's going to
hold your contract already. They pick. They decide. Maybe we'll go and actually uphold this contract. Maybe we won't this one. So they pick whether they want to or not. You can hire a third-party person to uphold your contracts. There can be alternatives within the free market. We can't think out of the box because we're thinking, well,
no,
build our roads.
It doesn't work that way.
Build our roads.
I agree with this. I've had a discussion with Chris. Chris, remember I had this discussion with you when I'm traveling to work and all of the goddamn big rigs are taking up 4 lanes. I'm trying to get on the road to work and I can't because they're all using the road. Why don't they pay for the fucking roads? But they won't, right? Because we know that the government exists.
You need a big car is what I've been trying to tell you. But no,
right. But that supports AJ's point. Yeah. But it doesn't. I don't agree with the point of eliminating government because you will have no remedy if there's wrong done. And you, Chris, know what happened to me when the big company broke their contract with me. I could do fuck all. And they said, yeah, you can go and sue us. Go ahead, sue us. Yeah. I couldn't find a lawyer to pay enough money to go and sue them because they were laughing at me. And look what happened with Faith Goldie. The same thing, exactly the same thing. They laughed her off. Go fuck yourself. Unless you have a big-ass lawyer who can really threaten the company. So that's where this free market happens. You're a small guy. You're not going to have any remedy.
You're assuming, first of all, that we'd have the same laws in place in a free market society, first of all.
I'm not assuming. I'm using examples from what we have today.
No, because once again, we're not in a free market society. You're looking at things like we are. We're in Canada. This is practically a communist nation, right? I'm exaggerating here, but we're not in a free market. It's not a free market whatsoever. So looking at examples of companies fucking people here is not an example of capitalism failing. Like you're falling in to the socialist trap. Honestly, it's just like that's what it is. It's like, oh, this is late stage. It's like no, it isn't.
Well, let me jump in here, guys. So
no.
The problem with part of my challenge with accepting, I'm all for lowering the role of government and cutting it to its core components.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want them out of my life as much as possible. I don't want a private military. I don't want certain things private.
You know what the forefathers didn't want in America? Didn't want the military industrial complex as it is here. They were against it, but people need it now.
Warned against it during World War II and all kinds of things.
It's inherently corrupt. It will
no, they were completely no. That's funny because they were completely against it when they were fighting the British. But so once they won, you know, everybody talks about Americans about the Constitution and everything.
The British.
Hold on a second. The Constitution was written for the richest landowners. They already held the land. That was the biggest discussion with one politician. That's true.
It's a horrible.
I'll agree with you on that. It's like Winston Churchill, right? Winston Churchill made that comment. He says it's the only best system we have. But what else would you have for free market? There you have no remedy.
He's wrong about that. You know, Winston Churchill. People, quote him all the time. No, he's wrong. It's not the best system. It's a shit system. Fucking monarchy is probably better than democracy, to be honest. Like if you got a monarchy and you had like Thomas, like somebody else running it as like a dictator, that's probably better than a democracy.
A benevolent dictatorship?
But
probably better. And look at the democracy. Dictatorship is better in the Middle East, I think we could say, like under Gaddafi and Saddam than a democracy, right? Would you admit that? Like, you know, you would assume that. So it's like democracies really only work in certain situations where the society
absolutely like if you
homogenous and even then
democracy
right, but
it's all an illusion to give people the illusion they have choice. Look at the progression. Let's go look at the last 30-40 years of economics in the first world, the trickle down theory. And as they said, okay, you know, we're going to give more money to the top and we're going to keep, you know, building things. So yeah, your income, theoretically, the number is going up over the last 30, 40 years, but in real numbers, it's going down. Meanwhile, the people at the very top have been exponentially increasing their income following this monetary policy for the last 30, 40 years in the first world. So to me, it is the people, you can vote for whoever you want, but the steady trickle is still is happening regardless. Trump talked about the wall. He had full control over the House, Senate, presidency, and the Supreme Court for the last 2 years. And as soon as he was about to lose the House, he starts crowing about the wall when he could have gotten the funding and started building that thing 2 years ago if they were serious about decreasing immigration in the United States. But the reality is,
Trump's
and now
fucked
he's
us.
going in CPAC and saying, we need to build.
We need more migration. Yeah, he's actually saying it.
And
he's saying that, we need it for business.
Economies on supercharging.
Right.
Let's figure out a way to get cut the cost of higher education or trades or whatnot, so we can get our people to work in the United States or Fortress North America. If you want to throw us in too, let's figure out a way to better
Chris,
we have.
Chris, don't forget that at the same time where he was talking about the wall, when those caravans were banging down on the fences at the U.S. border, he announced that he was going to give $10 million to Mexico to help them educate and fund their health services and bullshit. Meanwhile, Americans are suffering; their wages are dropping. And then he announced, "Okay, I got my wall, but it's a fence."
Yep.
Right.
I mean, the conservatives in general are usually linked. I don't like the linking of conservatism to business, of conservatism to religion. I think people kind of come into things for different things. But conservatives, if I'm using the American example, now I think you can use the Canadian one too, although it's a little bit different up here with the Liberals as well. They're also pro-business. They talk pro-people, but they're really pro-business. Both the Liberals and Conservatives are pro-business. Look at SNC-Lavalin. So they both want cheap labor. It doesn't make any sense for a Republican president to cut off cheap labor except to get votes. And that is where the bread and circuses come in. Because at the end of the day, those corporate interests are going to want, people have their vote, fine, but immigration dropped for a bit going to the United States legally, and then it shot up as people realized, things are settling down. We can still make the trip. We can still figure out things. No one's getting shot before. Now it's shot up again massively.
Well, yeah, because
I haven't heard much about what's happening on the Quebec border and our border crossings in a while. I'm very curious to see how that trickle's happening. But I think it's largely probably following a similar trend, or it will in a few months when those people start to make their way further and further north. Companies want the cheap labor. They want that.
Of course.
To do those jobs. That it's not going to change. That's not going to.
So again, let's go back to AJ's idea of a completely free market, void of a government.
So we've never had a free market.
You're getting
a real free market in the first world, just like we've never had a pure communist country.
Exactly. But the freer our countries have become, the better they were, right? Would you agree?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that.
But we've never had a fully free market, right? And we've never had a fully communist whatever thing, because first of all, that is just stupid.
Sure.
But the more freedom we've had, the better off humans have been, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I think we would all agree on that. So we can kind of ignore the whole whether we need a government or not, because at this point, we're so far from even having a small government that it's kind of irrelevant to even argue about this thing. But at the same time, when people are saying, well, what about corporations and immigration, and they're going to want cheap labor? Of course, they're always going to want cheap labor. But how we are subsidizing this, first of all, because they're coming in illegally, and then we have socialism, right? So then they get immediately put on healthcare, which we're paying for, which they haven't paid into, which is socialism. Then they immediately get on welfare or some child benefit tax.
Buddy,
socialism.
AJ, I gotta stop you for a sec. AJ, give me a second.
Go ahead,
AJ, I gotta stop you for a second. I came from a socialist country. We don't have socialism here. We have social programs that are very lax and open due to our government. We don't have a socialist government.
We have aspects of socialism. We don't have a socialist government. Of course we don't. But you know what I mean.
We don't have
me saying.
I know what you mean. I'm trying to. I want to be accurate.
Okay, you know what's going on right now. People are coming across the border, and after 1 month, they have a working permit. They can go. They get a child benefit tax credit.
They get credit cards. They get mortgages.
Now, This is not a free market.
The mortgages come
right?
from the private sector.
That's not a free market. They're getting subsidized. And it's not fair. And that would not exist if the government was smaller and didn't have the ability to do this, right? Legal immigration costs $30 billion a year for us. Just legal immigration costs us $30 billion a year, right? So that's, once again, us subsidizing it, right?
Absolutely. Like, we know this, that Quebec transfers a lot of these, what do you call, professional immigrants that are going to open up businesses, and then we eat up. They go out into the West, they go into Ontario, BC, and then we end up funding those costs. But let's try to be a little bit accurate here. We all want a small government. All of us argue for it. I think Chris knows my feelings about politicians. I think they're all civil servants. I think they're all parasites. I don't trust a single thing that they say. They speak from both ends of the mouth.
You want a government with politicians?
No, I don't want. Okay, so I want a responsible government. How do we do that? I want to be, so this is where I go now with my theory. I want to have the ability to grab the motherfucker by the scruff of the neck and shake him violently, like this, like Pavlovian, like through, how do you train a dog or a cat? Through Pavlovian technique. You smack it on the ass. Don't do that. He listens, and you have to repeat it. But because the politicians are so far, touch him.
But that's the thing.
They're untouchable.
We're in a democracy, and everybody has different opinions about how things should be run and done. So you may want to do that, but somebody else may want to go and kiss him on the cheeks and be like, I love everything you're doing. So that's a problem with democracy, is it's subjective. And all these people right now think that we're all going to die in 12 years because of climate change, right? That's all I hear. We can't elect the conservatives because they're not going to do anything about climate change. We're all going to die in 12 years, and they're not going to give money to the Aboriginals, right? So it's like, that's a huge. That's the problem. Democracy is the problem. It's people, the dumber people, the idiots that are convinced by the mainstream media because they're always going to exist. The government's always going to exist, and they're always going to want to convince people to vote for a bigger and larger government. That's why government schools, do we learn anything about small governments or whatnot in these schools? No, they don't teach you anything about that because they want you to be good little slaves, right? But at the end of the day, but yeah, we can change topics or whatever if you want, though. Maybe go back to New Zealand or whatnot. But yeah, I can talk about small government for a long time, and there's a lot I could say about it. And I have a lot of arguments for it. So I can go on.
I think we can absolutely, and I think we can agree. We all agree. I think Chris agrees with you, and I agree with you that we need a smaller government. I think it's in the approach that I see it, because even in a small government, right? Governments are organic. They just grow. We started from us. Remember when Canada was a group of people tearing down forests and tilling the land. They formed communities. Those communities formed governments, and it organically grew, and bloat happened. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but would you agree that corporations, or let's say not corporations, but businesses bloat as well? It eventually gets so top heavy. Yeah. So it's the same. It depends
on what they're selling. If they're a shitty company that doesn't sell good products, how are they going to bloat? It's you deciding to go to McDonald's and eat their shitty food at the end of the day. It's you deciding to go and buy.
No. Okay. So cigarettes. Let's bring up cigarettes. Everybody knows cigarettes are bad for you, but they still sell it, and people still buy it because they tell you it's okay. Smoke. You're going to be cool.
Exactly. So, right? But once again, we have the government that comes in, pays for your health care, so people don't have to really think about the things that they do, because they're like, oh, well, the government's going to pay for my shit.
No. I've seen people there on their deathbed trying to smoke. My grandmother, one of those.
Who cares? Let people kill themselves with cigarettes. What does it harm you at the end of the day? Really, it only matters to you.
Well, at the end of the
free healthcare system that we all have to pay into, that now we have to pay more money for, right? That's the only reason. When you have a free healthcare system, this is when you start to see them come up with laws to say, hey, now this, you can't do this anymore. Well, actually, oh, you can't do this because it's going to increase healthcare costs for everybody. Oh, well, you know, we need a nanny state to get people to stop doing this because there's this and that, right? Whereas if we didn't have it, people would probably think maybe a little more clearly. And if they didn't, they'll die. And then we have less low IQ people running around. And then we get smarter people in the future, instead of sustaining a stupid population of fucking idiots that are going to vote for socialism and for us to be replaced by fucking immigrants at the end of the day. So, you know, it's good.
Well, there's quite a few intelligent people that I'm sure have built some of the greatest technologies that were addicted to tobacco. But let's just stop.
Who cares? And let them die.
Who cares?
They can invent good things while smoking tobacco and getting drunk. I'm not saying people are idiots for doing drugs per se, but let them choose to do it. It's not a big deal. Let the company sell it. Who cares? Are we going to police every single fucking thing? You have autonomy. I have autonomy. Once you start having the government, hey, well, we'll come in and we'll make sure that they treat you right this time. It starts with that, and then it expands and it continues to grow. And then before you know it, your kid can't run in the fucking playground because he may trip and fall and hurt himself and sue the fucking school. Right? Like, you know, it's stupid. But
okay, so you're saying we want the code of Hammurabi. So you've stolen something. We're going to chop off your hand. Are we going to go back to the Wild Wild West?
Who said that?
I mean,
who said that?
That's what you're saying.
Consequences of your actions. Do we need to baby people? We need to put things around. Dude, I'm a roofer. Okay, first of all, and I have to deal with the consequences of stupid people all the time because some idiot doesn't know how to fucking walk on a roof without falling and tumbling off a roof. Now we all have to be 10 feet from the edge, and if not, we're harnessed up like shit. And if not, they'll shut down the whole fucking job. We'll all have to go home for a day. You can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in your job just like that because some stupid fucking regulations, because some other retard goes and does stupid shit that is unnecessary a lot of the times. There was less accidents back in the day. We even they showed this in our training class when they were building the Empire State Building, because people were less complacent back then. And now they're way more complacent or whatever nowadays. So they just think everything's going to be safe for them, and then they fall in holes even though you put tape all around it. So it's like, let these people fall in holes, let them die. This is Darwinism. I'm not saying we need to cut people's hands off. Fuck no. But you know what? If you do stupid shit, then you'll suffer the consequences. Right, and I'm not saying
Darwin's law doesn't care. They'll get you either way.
So let's just so we could go on for this. I think the chat's getting bored. Honestly,
I don't think so. Other news topics that you want to talk about, Fred?
Well, okay, let's just go back. I wanna highlight something here, and then maybe we can save this topic for another stream.
Rainy Steps, I wanted to mention the super chat that he sent a little bit earlier.
Sure.
Thank you for the super chat. It was howdy doody. Where have you been? Nowhere. Just working and stuff a lot more lately. But thank you for the super chat, Rainy. I really appreciate that. Go ahead there. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no worries. I think we can cover this off and on where we can talk about what we think could fix the ails of Canada, because we can all agree. I agree with you, AJ. I think there's too many people here. I'm just going to share my screen again for a moment so people understand how my frustrations. I already covered. Oops, I think am I sharing? Nope, not yet. There we go. Okay, let me just bring this up. Desktop. And I'm going to bring one of these pictures here that I had the other day, but hold on. Let me bring it up.
The mall picture?
Yeah. The mall picture. Give me a sec. Where did I save that to? Sorry, chat. Give me a moment. I know everybody's probably
If you had a Mac, it'd be much easier to find this picture, but that's another story.
Shut up. You're such Mac idiots. Appleites. All right.
Stop getting bored, man. What the hell are you doing?
I'm trying to find this picture.
You want me to find it for you?
You guys, fucking, this is boomer issues. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
Shut up.
You got like 2 kids there, and they can show you how to use a computer.
Shut up.
Let Chris take over.
All right, no, I got it here. 1 second.
All right.
Holy crap, my computer's dying. That's why. It's okay. Here, you guys, can you see the picture?
Let me see here.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a. All right, I see a.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
What's that there?
So this is at Vaughan Mills Mall. Okay. It's an advertisement, and a lot of advertisements are like this in Toronto and the surrounding area. Right. It's all because Chinese right now have a lot of spending power, and immigration.
So yeah.
Right. And immigration is tied to a product, and that product is people. And right now, who has the greatest purchasing power? It's Asians. And below this, unfortunately, I couldn't capture it well enough. Below this are 2 payment systems that Chinese use. One is WeChat Pay, and the other one is by that, what's that guy that runs Alibaba or something like that?
Alipay?
Alipay, right. So there's 2 chat systems, all in Chinese characters. You don't know what it says. You have no clue. And all of the postings is Chinese with very rich items. And that's the tragedy here, that, that's what we are, a product, right? So you could say in a sense, it's all government, but it's the immigration is just based on one thing only.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. Fredrick, do you want to introduce yourself again, just for a couple people and stuff? People are asking.
Sure.
Just to go over your one quickly, right?
No problem.
Really fast.
So
really fast. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So I have my own channel. I am in support of limiting immigration or a complete moratorium for 10 years. I would prefer forever, at least. And I believe in a smaller government. I'm not for politicians. I don't like voting. I don't vote myself. I don't trust these people. I think they're all scum. They all lie. And, I found AJ's channel, and I like his channel. I like Old White Guy's channel. I think they say some good things. And I don't know. That's about it. What else?
Are you a Jew?
Me? Are you kidding me?
Oy,
yeah. Just asking.
Fuck,
I don't care.
Do I sound like a Jew?
No, it's just what the chat is asking. It's friendly.
It's like when we were having those bagels,
Chris Gunderson, are you a Jew?
Was that a question to me?
Yes. Are you a Jew?
It's funny. I was just enjoying some bagels and matzo balls and thinking I was going to get that question tonight.
Right.
Yeah, no. I'm
all right. Well, you're allowed to stay.
You'd understand that is not possible.
You're allowed to stay.
No.
This time.
Anyways, so
go ahead.
All right. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I'm taking a lot of snapshots as I'm walking around. I'm trying to be discreet. It's very difficult. Last video I did, I showed some pictures in my mall, what I like to call ninjas, but more appropriately, they're Muslims from head to toe, what they're covered in that ninja outfit, whatever they call that. I don't know. And so I'm walking around just showing the changes around me, because I can't communicate with people. There's just different what people do in their daily routines culturally are different. So it's impacting me. But I want to get back to this article here. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Erdogan. He's the president of Turkey. And just last year and previous years, he has been very vocal about destroying Europe.
Yeah, I've seen a holy war a few times.
Yeah. He's commented on flooding European borders with Muslims and Turks. And it wasn't too, he just made a statement about the New Zealand shooting. And that was that, you see, they are against Muslims. They and it's all about Islamophobia. Meanwhile, this guy is pariah number one about destroying Europe. He's made statements.
Speaking of Turkey, do you know Israel won't call out the Armenian genocide in Turkey? It's like one of the only countries that won't.
Oh, really?
Do you know why that is? You should look up the history of Jews in Israel, right? Like, I'm not saying anything bad about Jews. I like Jewish people. Don't ban me. Don't ban me.
Dude,
but
you're done. Your channel's going down.
Whatever.
With the best of them,
I looked up, man, if you look up the Young Turks, one of the founders of it is actually a crypto Jew guy who was a part of the Done Me. And they were these Jews, apparently, like, Jews were living in Turkey for so long, like just like Christians and stuff, but they were actually held to higher esteem than Christians and anybody else. They were practically given the same rights as Muslims. And it wasn't until the 1600s or 1700s that this one Muslim leader came around, and then he, said convert or die. But what they became is the Dun Me or Dun May, and they were outwardly Muslim, but they still practiced their religion of Judaism, cryptically or whatever behind closed doors. And, they actually have, a really strong connection, and they stayed in Turkey. A lot of the Jews were still in Turkey for a really, really long time, even up until 2010. That's when they started actually leaving and going more to Israel and that. But Israel and Turkey, they have a really strong connection with each other, and you're never going to see Israel call out the Armenian genocide, because it would actually probably link them to it. Because, like I said, one of the founders, Emmanuel Carrizo, is actually Jewish. Same with the Holodomor. They're never going to recognize that as a genocide either, because it attributes them to it, right? And we're only going to ever be told about the Holocaust constantly, which I'm not saying it didn't happen or anything like that, but it's really interesting how these things aren't talked about as much as the Holocaust and stuff. It's like, I don't know, so people can just play the perpetual victim narrative, I don't know, and get money from fucking Germany and other people and get people to feel sorry for them. But go ahead.
I talked about this in one of my videos. If you watched it, I brought up Norman G. Finkelstein's book on the Holocaust industry. In it, he goes through all of the examples that they've used that Holocaust. And previous to just after the war, most Jewish people in America didn't really think about it. It wasn't until the first Israeli-Arab War is when they really started heavily promoting it. But sorry, Chris, I thought you were going to. I think you were going to say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a surprise.
I think one thing, you guys, I didn't call it out directly, but I will now. When we were talking about immigration, and I mentioned that some people see it as their calling to take those third world morals and principles and bring them to the first world to breed, essentially. It's a holy war to these people. Like, this is their way of attacking, literally, Western culture that they see as decadent, they see as evil and whatnot. They see the only way is to get tons more Muslims and breed them into the country, and then also then to slowly, like, if you read and Fred, you've read the Quran. And read read other variants of it and some of the other holy books, and they're involved. I mean, when they talk about infidels, which is anybody who's not Muslim, much like Jews talking about Gentiles,
Kafirs. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rules don't apply in terms of how they treat women, in terms of how they do any number of things. So that's part of the challenge here. And I'm not saying every Muslim is this way. In some cases, people don't even realize what they're doing. They're just kind of following what their command is. But that is where some of this is coming from. So when you have a guy like Erdogan, or whatever his name is, calling that out, that's a call to action. That's just bringing to the surface something that they're saying behind the scenes, saying in their places of worship, saying in some other places. It's a holy war to these people. That you're trying to combat that with logic and policies and whatnot. And they are prepared to go further than we are, is what I'm saying. So how far are we willing to go to defend that first world? I'm not saying white people, that first world way of life that we have, those first world values. Because there are people who aren't white people who share values that we have in the first world. So that's why.
Right, for sure. It's like
that's why I'm not saying that. So I'm just saying we have to be prepared to go further, or be prepared to accept what's happening, and take some heat. So,
right, yeah, and it really comes down to it does come down to race at the end of it. And it's like, I don't want to live in some ethno society and stuff. A lot of the most important people in my life are black, right? Or different race, right? Some of the best people in my life. And I wouldn't want to see them go or be gone or whatnot. But we need to understand the whole thing in New Zealand and all that stuff. It does have to do with, especially people in Europe, like being replaced in their own countries. And if it's happening in Canada and America, some people can make kind of that argument where, it's built on immigrants or whatever. And that's a little bit easier to make, I guess. But when it comes to countries like France, Sweden, England, Germany, whatnot, where these Muslim kids or whatever are now outpacing, like, there's more of them in the young generation than the actual, like, New Zealanders or Sweden kids, like, when it comes to schools, like, they're already in the minority and stuff. And people will wake up to this, and they will look around, and it will anger them. And it does have to do with, like, people want their countries to not change so fast, to remain. Most white people, most people in general, right, are okay with some diversity, some differences and stuff. But if it happens way too fast, or even if it happens at all, even if not too fast, like, honestly, I don't want it to happen slow either, right? There's some people trying to quell white people, or try to be like, okay, maybe we'll slow it down and, get them used to the idea. But it's like, that's bullshit. It's like, no. We should have a complete right to say, like, no more of anybody from any country we don't want. Like, we should have complete autonomy of who we decide, and we shouldn't be called racist for it. And value or wanting not to be replaced should not be something bad. But it's only bad when, people in Western countries, if you look at things, we're the only people where it's happening to. It's only Western countries where they're being demographically replaced, because in Asian countries like Japan and all these other things, maybe they still kind of have some socialism type things where they're having problems, so they now need to create robots or whatever. But they're still not bringing in people to replace their people, because that would be bullshit, right? And the argument they're using, well, you're not breeding enough, you don't pay enough taxes, you're not smart enough, all these immigrants we're bringing in, they're so much better than you. And it's like, yeah, you're bringing in disproportionately smart people from those countries, and then you're comparing it to everybody in that country, with the smart and the poor, and you're comparing like a immigrant with a high education with everybody else. And it's like they're using this as like, well, produce more, and then you won't be replaced. Have more kids and you won't be replaced. And it's like, this is gonna piss people off, because it pisses me off, I tell you. It really fucking does, because it means to me, it seems like no empathy for white people. That's what I see. It's like, fuck you. We don't care if you're getting replaced. Shut the fuck up. Stop bitching about it. And if you talk about it in the wrong way, you're incentivizing this hatred and whatnot. It's like, I've never called for violence once in my life. I don't want people to be violent. But, you know, saying that more of these incidents are going to happen if we just keep getting ignored is not a threat of any kind. It's just the truth, the reality. And until we keep getting ignored, things like this are going to keep fucking happening. And I don't want them to happen. I want things to be peaceful. I don't want war is a terrible thing. Killing people is terrible. You know, if you know anything about war whatsoever, not that I've been in one, but I have enough empathy. I have enough imagination that I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be in a war. You know, like
trust me, it's ugly. It's ugly.
Ugly, right?
It's very ugly. I've been there. I've been in small towns because of the Balkans wars. I've been there where I was in a small town. All the young people had scattered. They were left just some old people and mostly soldiers. They were just lonely. A lot of family members. People are on fucking edge. People really need to know what that's like. So they, you know, maybe they would stop with all the immigration. I was in a bar once. I walked into the bar in Zagreb, and there's a guy. He comes in, unloads 9mm Beretta in the bar, just pop, 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 and he's going mad. He's crazy. People are, you know, kind of hit the dirt. Then they come up to him and they grab him, and he's bawling his eyes out. His little baby brother was shot on the front,
right,
and then run over by a tank, you know. And you know, you could fucking cut the air. People were on edge. People wanted to just murder you because they were just fuming inside. That's what we're going to head to, though. People don't get it, but who are the biggest one? The perpetrators of this. Okay, fine. The Israelis have their own, they want their own fencing. They want their own culture to survive. The Chinese, they're all going jingoist. They're kicking out all the expats from China, right? If you watch, Chris, help me out. What's that guy's name from Serpenza and the other one, Lao Wei? Yeah, Lawai, and they're kicking them out. They've been like chased out of China because they can't, like, they talk about China and then they're critical about China. They were chased out immediately. They can't really go back anymore. They're in other parts of the country, like to the 2 Canadians in the Philippines whose heads were chopped off by Muslims, right? Remember those? And all of these other countries. Now, who is the biggest perpetrator of allowing this shit to come here and behave belligerently and act as if, hey, you owe me, I don't owe you shit? Who is the biggest perpetrator?
Us.
It's, yeah, there you go. Exactly. Right?
Yeah. Well,
it's a scorpion. We're the turtle. Right. We're the turtle and they're the scorpion.
Well, yeah, like if it wasn't weak, strong men wouldn't allow their cultures to be taken over by other people. But, you know, over the years, yeah, we've been completely pussified and shit. So we just allow this to happen. And, you know, maybe it's because people are completely brainwashed with political correctness. They don't want to offend people. I don't fucking know, or they're just too scared. But yeah, this is one of the problems. And like, you know, it's men failing themselves and failing everybody else and allowing this stuff to happen, right? You know, you can't really blame any other real group other than us, who at the end of the day, that's why it's like, you know, people got mad when I blamed some older groups and stuff, and then it's like, well, you know, things don't just happen.
The hippies, they blame the hippies.
Just happen randomly. Like, they don't just come into existence out of nowhere, right? And we are all to blame. We all have responsibility. We all need to take responsibility for what is going on, unless you're like 5 or 10 or 15 or like, you know, I'm not going to blame fucking 16-year-old or something, you know, but essentially, yeah, you know, as soon as you start to be old enough to you know, participate in stuff, then you start to have a responsibility in the direction of where your country goes. And if you just sit back and watch football and play video games and you do whatever, then you can't really complain when leftists take over your country and do the slow walk through the institutions, right? And take everything over. And you can't complain if you put your kids in government schools and shit, and they come out like trannies and shit, right? Go ahead.
There are Jews out there that tell you carte blanche what's going on, and no one's listening. Douglas Murray, in his book, The Death of Europe, I was going to read you a chapter, but I'll leave that for next time. And he talks about Barbara Roche, who espouses her Jewry. I'm a big Jew, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine, whatever. Who cares? And she's saying that UK is a nation of immigrants. That's what they talk about. And Finkelstein says the exact same thing, right? But no one's listening. No one's reading because they got their asses into, I don't know, fucking hockey, Sunday night hockey. I guess it was I think it was the Canadian pastime to do. You know, you get home from work, have a beer, watch hockey. But we're not there anymore.
In the sand, but yeah,
it's a Coliseum.
Well, yeah, it's a dumbing down of the masses. This is exactly why in the Midwestern states is usually the stomping grounds or the recruitment grounds for the U.S. military because they keep that area dumbed down.
Well, it's not just the Midwest. They also it's also seen as a way that people across the country who are from poor backgrounds to make a little something of themselves, save some money, get on the GI Bill, they can go to college, etc. You take the people, but it's not an American thing. That's everywhere. I'm pretty sure if you looked at Canada and you looked at the where most soldiers are come from, I'm guessing that even though the majority of people in this country, or a good third of them, are in the Greater Toronto area, I'm guessing that we aren't the biggest contributors to the Canadian military. Just guessing. It's probably coming from other parts, more rural parts of the country.
Well, Northern Ontario, Alberta, Manitoba, yeah.
Right. Well, like, you know, like in America, where do they go? They recruit all the poorest, you know, white trash or kind of ghetto type places where they can. And that's the thing, you know, you don't. That's why I'm not for the military industrial complex, right? It's just a huge fucking it's like a big jobs program. A lot of the times, a huge waste of money. I don't know how many trillions of dollars were spent, and you can make arguments about it and say, like, you know, we need it because I don't know, China is going to take advantage of, you know, things here or whatever. But ultimately, you know, they don't take care of soldiers. They treat them like shit. Look in Canada, you know, Trudeau is fighting these people in court and they're asking for the bare minimum for just what they deserve. And he's like, no, you're asking for too much, but here's 500 million to the media. Here's 400 million to girls and educating them in Africa. Here's another million here. Here's another 400 million here, blah, blah, constantly. But
it wasn't only Trudeau. It wasn't only Trudeau. Harper was giving.
Oh, they were bad. They were bad too. But go ahead.
Harper was giving China in 2008. We were suffering here through a really bad recession, right? And, you know, people are saying, you know, there are a lot of, I saw some comments sometimes saying, oh, the Canadian government bailed out the banks. No, they didn't. They didn't bail out the Canadian banks. The Canadian subsidiaries of Canadian banks in the U.S. asked for money. They didn't actually need it, but the Canadian government gave them. They allowed them, like, you know, the kind of shenanigans and fuckery going on is just outstanding. But, I mean, like, you have to take it on a whole premise. And so I talked about in another video, I talked about NGOs and what a vacuum of money those organizations are, because at least with the government, you could see who the fuck you're dealing with, right? And you can set your sights on, you know, putting up candidates and whatnot, you know, unless we all collectively agree. And of course, we're going to have some scabs in the line, but all collectively agree, give them the middle finger, go fuck yourselves. You know, we don't trust you anymore. It doesn't matter what spews out of your mouth. I know people keep pushing. I know Frank is always pushing. Nice guy. He seems like a nice guy, but he keeps pushing that Bernier on me. That's what I feel on me. When I watch his channel. Yeah, but the guy fucking voted for the transgender language laws, and then he can't even remember a bill, the bill that it was Bill C-16 when he's in a town hall and he's just joking. Well, I made a mistake, I called Jordan Peterson and then he told me, you need to make your bed and wipe your ass with toilet paper. And then I was like, oh my God, I know now I made a mistake. Like, what the fuck? Really? We're gonna vote someone like that makes mistakes like this? I don't know. It seems all suspect to me. But the biggest tragedy is that us white people, like I've had circumstances where I've had conflicts with, let's say, Chinese people who were behaving extremely belligerently, and I am there trying to communicate in their own language, and there's a white couple that comes out through the creak of the door. We don't tolerate racism. Oh, really? What do you know? What's going on with the situation? Why are you getting engaged? Do you know what's happening? Do you know that these people are throwing their garbage in our driveway and stuff? Oh, we're going to call the police. We don't tolerate racism. Come on.
Racism is bad.
Come on.
So they're being racist against you, assuming that you don't know Chinese and you're mocking them.
No. So what happened was in our driveway at one of my father's
say,
places.
fuck off. I'm being racist. Yeah. Go suck a dick.
Well, yeah.
No, but you because you're speaking. You said you were speaking Chinese to these people.
So I was speaking. My father's fluent in Mandarin. Yeah, because he taught English in. He's very good with languages. He knows 6 languages. You know this, Chris, right? Oh. So, and he was speaking fluent Mandarin to this person. I'm trying in broken Cantonese because I didn't know which one she was speaking, and then to this neighbor, the next neighbor to her was a white couple, an Anglo-Saxon couple, and they opened the creak of the door. They just hear fighting, right? My dad's yelling at this Chinese woman to get off his property, right? Because she came onto the property, and my dad says, "Get off," in Chinese. And then they start calling us racist, and they call the cops on us because they think we're picking on this little Chinese old lady. Meanwhile, she walked onto the property and starts yelling at us both. Like, where do you get the gumption to come out and even address a situation you're not even a part of? But that's it. That's what's happened. That's what's happening. I'm sitting at work having a black guy. He's a nice guy. He sits from me at work right across from me, has a better suit the size of a goddamn tank. Like, guy's like probably, has 5 meals a day just to get to that size. Tells me, points at me, says, "You have white privilege." And I said, "Excuse me? I have white privilege? Dude, you have the same fucking job as me. You're dressed to the nines, and you got a goddamn $100,000 car. What the fuck are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, white privilege." That's what. And who's teaching these people this? It's not his people. It's my people.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
But like, it's like whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's still gonna be taught. And we're always going to have that problem with diversity. So, it's like we just need to end diversity as much. I agree with you. That's all white people that are promoting a lot of this shit and convincing people. But it's not only white people. And there's a lot of fucking deluded Black Lives Matter people, and especially in America and increasingly more now in Canada, that, like, they think they're in Jim Crow era. They think they're still slaves, essentially, and they're culpable because they grow up teaching their kids, "Oh, white people are not gonna give you a fair shot. Oh, white people are gonna fucking take advantage of you. Oh, white people are gonna do this. White people are gonna do that." They grow up as like thinking white people are gonna steal their organs and sell it on the fucking thing. Like you should see, like, especially in America. Like, a lot of people are segregated. Some Black people have never met a white person in their entire life. Some white people have never met a Black person in their entire life. So, like, they come up with all these things about them. But, I agree with you. Like, if we didn't have a lot of this propaganda going around, we could probably live together a lot easier with all this white privilege stuff going around. That's a racist concept. But also, at the same time, why are people falling for this? Why are they buying into this stuff?
White guilt.
Why are they doing that? Why did it not work on me? Why is it not working on you? Like, Is it a problem that people are so easily susceptible to this? Because are we going to assume that people are going to stop trying to manipulate people? Like, that's always going to happen in history, in the future. There are always going to be people trying to subvert us, trying to create Marxism, cultural Marxism, just another form of Marxism, to get the money from the the bourgeoisie and give it to the proletariat or something like that, right? But just, instead of class politics now, they're doing it with races and whatnot. But that's the thing, as long as there's diversity, you're always going to have politicians playing on these natural differences that we have, playing on diversity and the problems that it naturally brings, playing on people's natural tribalism, which is always going to be there, right? It's never really going to go away. We're probably not going to move past that anytime soon. So we need to just have a system with understanding people's natural way of thinking. That's why I say I kind of like more capitalism, because socialism or government or a statist system, you're creating a system assuming that you're going to put some people in place that are going to, I don't know, do the right things, but that never usually happens. So that's why I'm like, we want to give just at least amount of power to people as possible. And, we're always going to be self-interested and want to make a lot of money for ourselves and our family. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. If we didn't think this way, there wouldn't be a human population right now. If we weren't self-interested to take care of ourselves above all else and our families, we probably would not have a human race right now, or it would be completely different. It would look completely different. We probably wouldn't be as advanced as we are now. So these things, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just bad when you have certain government bodies or institutions that can take people's natural instincts and make it worse. And if we remove the propaganda, that's good, but how are you going to make sure it's removed? It's all, you know what I mean? Like we're always going to have bad people. They're always going to be trying to subvert us, and we got to like inoculate people to that. And if they're too stupid, or if they're prone to believing in this stuff because they already don't trust white people because they're tribalistic, then they're already going to buy into this stuff easily. Whereas other people, maybe they're not going to. We're always going to have that problem if we keep bringing in a bunch of different cultures and stuff. But go ahead. Sorry, I went on a little rant there.
Chris, do you have anything to add? I know I've been.
Yeah. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, what do you think? Just joking. I'm listening to this, and I'm wondering, and Fred, you and I have talked about this a little bit, but I'm always thinking about this concept of dividing the people while people on top are making their plans and making their moves to move society, move the lower classes into a direction allows them to profit, allows those higher classes to profit more. And I try to balance that against not being a conspiracy guy, because I don't really think of myself as that. I think somebody earlier in the chat said that a certain group, who I don't belong to, as I conferred earlier for old white guy, likes to divide and conquer. That's their strategy. And look at what we're talking about here. We've got basically a massive culture war, or on the tipping point of a massive culture war. Some would say it's already begun in the West. And people here are focused on that. And then they're going to work, and they're so busy they can't take care of they choose not to take care of their bodies, don't spend time with their families, trust in if the society is a stool, trust in the institutions that created that society, this first world, is completely eroded. There's no trust in government. There's no trust in Christian faith, although we can thank our Catholic priests for not keeping their hands to themselves in some regards for a lot of that. But also we can trust the Jewish-controlled media for throwing that into the limelight, rather than also focusing on other people in places of trust not related to religion who have similar situations, like teachers, like whatnot. But we're supposed to trust our public schools. We're supposed to trust our teachers. We're supposed to trust our doctors. We're supposed to trust all these other groups that have these same problems. But anyways, blah, blah, blah. No trust in government, no trust in that. Meanwhile, we're importing people who only listen to their people, their place of worship. And now we have people who are having this conversation and not thinking about we have had, as I mentioned earlier with the whole trickle-down theory, is one example. We have this multi-generational, faceted, regardless of who's in office, there's an erosion of wealth, and now people are getting scared. So they're saying, okay, I'm going to start to give up some of my freedom, some of my security for certain things. I just traveled in the United States for work, and then traveled previously for a family trip. And when I went to the normally I have a Nexus card to go across the border, so I've given up my iris scan and my fingerprints to two governments, which was my mistake. But I get across the border fast. When I was going across with my family, though, they wanted me to take pictures of my kids as I had to scan my passport into the machine. And I didn't do it. I just took pictures of myself and then walked in. But there's that erosion of security for things. And I'm kind of like, and privacy. And people are kind of making that choice now. They're getting comfortable with smartphones. They're getting comfortable with social media. And just, again, it's this creep, this slow creep, the slow erosion of things. And then, of course, we have, again, the erosion of the family, another stool, that the nuclear family, the husband, wife, the marriage. Meanwhile, you have people you're importing who are very much into these things that we're throwing away as a Western society. And the roles of those things, the government, for better or for worse, as a check and balance, at a minimum, the family and the Christian faith are completely ignored in media, are being ignored in history books, are being ignored in terms of what people are being taught in schools. And Richard says he's tried to teach them the real history. Yeah, that's true. People aren't learning the real history. So what I'm saying is, I think that we as a society, forget the 58 people in this chat, I think we as Western society, our shields are down. Like our people's eyes are covered up here. They're blinded to what is potentially happening. They don't know the history that got us to where we are, the reasons why we have gotten to where we are, the things that we've had to fight off and defend to get to where we are in the first world. And they're kind of, everything's hunky-dory, and yeah, please come and do what you want to do. And that to me is very scary. I know Fred and I offline, we talk about, as you probably have realized, Fred and I have known each other for a long time, almost close to 20 years. And we both have kids. And we talk about, Fred's kids are older than mine. And we talk a little bit about what his kids are learning in school. And my kids are several years younger than him. And kind of, he asks me all the time, what are you going to teach your kids? When they come home with some of the garbage that my kids are learning about, what are you going to teach them about? And I said, well, I'm going to do a lot of what you do. I'm going to talk to my kids about, I want to have that relationship with them, as Fred has with his, that, they can tell them about what happened in their day and know that dad is here, that mom is here, that our family is together. We go to church as well, so that we try to have that spiritual background as well, and try and teach them the ways that brought us to where we are as a first world, so that when those attacks come from these other forces, at least my kids know, and my family knows, hey, okay, thank you for sharing that nonsense. We don't necessarily believe that, but thank you for, good to know the opinion I should ignore. Anyways, that was a lot there.
And this is true. Like, I always like to bring real life examples. I can talk like any literate person, and I like to talk so people understand, when I always like to give examples. So like a few examples, when you mentioned about my kids coming home, they were coming home and they had pamphlets of how Trudeau is awesome. There was a picture of, on a black and white print, and there was a picture of Trudeau there, and he's smiling, he's happy, and all the liberals are all, laughing, and and there's another kind of like a black and white print of Malala, like the little girl from Chris, where's she from? Afghanistan or
shot in the face.
Afghanistan, right? Yeah. So she got shot in the head. So she's a hero, right? I mean, what about the soldiers that get shot or lose their legs? Or what about the firemen or the guys who get your crab at your dinner plate that go out into the Atlantic and they fall off the boat? Right? Heroes too, right? But we never talk about them. So she got shot in the head. She comes from a country where they treat their women like garbage, and all of a sudden I'm supposed to care. Now, I'm sorry, maybe it's my kind of my low empathy and my very high apathy and my extreme cynicism. But, this is what she brings home, and this is what she's always being taught, to feel guilty. And the last month has always been about, oh, we are so bad to the Native Indians and we stole their land. And she comes home. I said, no, we didn't steal their land. We took their land. We conquered it. We came here. There were nomads and we took it. We had a fight and we won. And, in the end, we made society better and we offered them opportunities, but, we could do some things that could benefit them. But at the same time, they have opportunities available to them. I've dated an Inuit girl in the past, and most Inuits are their own self-driven business people. They do very well because they don't get the handouts. I think handouts are very dangerous for people. And, my daughter had to attend classes. I had to speak with the principal, and I got into a heated argument with the principal. I said, what are you teaching here? I knew what the subjects were, but the topics were something like gender fluidity. We all know what that's all about. And I have these discussions all the time. I see these, and I'm sorry, I'm going to call them for what they are, freaks, right? These are people who are mentally ill. And, now we've given them a voice, a loudspeaker to make them sound important. And I told that teacher, you're not supposed to be teaching this anymore. Rob Ford is now in power. He's changed the sexual ed curriculum, and she stood up proudly. Huh?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he cucked on that though, right? Doug Ford?
No, he did. No, he cucked out on giving a small minority group different rights for riding without helmets on motorcycles. I'm upset about that, but he didn't cuck on that. But what's happened is
hold on. Just to update you, Fred. What he did is what he said is they're not going to take out anything on the new curriculum when they do their new one, but they're going to change the ages at which some of those things are taught. So they won't be taught as early; they'll be taught later in education, but nothing is being removed. So all that nonsense you just talked about will be taught. I'm not sure if they're changing the age that you're talking about for your kids, but some of those things about the gender stuff will be taught later. Some of the most controversial things.
Is that because of the court case? Is that because that teacher got up really proudly? She says because we're taking the court.
No, I don't know. That's all I know about the announcement.
Because I knew they were taking the government to
Supreme Court,
and they're adding in some things, but the things they're adding in aren't bad. So.
Well, didn't BC just rule in their Supreme Court that you're supposed to, if your kid wants to gender reassignment surgery or drugs, you have to give it to him?
I think that was a bill. What bill was it?
Just like 2 days ago. You know what's fucked up? There was this teacher that recently came out about this. Because there's a school of all of these autistic children, and all of them are coming out as transsexual. And she was like, oh, like they're all autistic and they're all trannies. And they all dress the same. They all wear the same things. They all watch these same YouTubers, and they all take their name. And they all want to be called, like, I don't know, Devin or Brian or whatever the person's name is. And it just makes me think of like 1984, where there's all these like little kids that are all conformist, and then the teachers are now afraid to like misgender people because they're like, one kid was like, hey, boys can have periods too, and they're like, oh yeah, like, well, of course they can, they're like afraid to address these kids. But it's fucked up. It's all these kids with mental disabilities, a lot of them, that are falling for this. And it's crazy. You know, they're going to get all these drugs. And then when they finally kind of like get a little bit older, they're going to wake up and they're going to be like, their tits are going to be cut off. Their dick is going to be cut off. And they're going to be a lot more depressed. But, you know, this is their plan, right? They're trying to weaken us, to make us like, they pussify Western men as much as possible. So then our women don't want us. And we're too fucking weak to fend off any type of invasion, right? I'm not trying to use that type of language.
You know what should be classic? You know what they should show is, and I know they try to push this on my kids, and I got into an argument. They didn't attend that class, and you know, they were something about obesity, and it's okay to be obese, and I don't teach this. There's no pop, no candy in my household. Workout. You know, we play badminton today, and we're a very active family. Now, the thing that they should show. I don't know if anyone in the chat, I dare anyone in the chat, and you too, AJ, is to go and watch a video.
Double dare me?
It's not. I double dare you.
Okay, all right.
It's not a true video, but it's a video of the process of cutting a man's dick off and inverting it and flipping it out and
I'm not going to watch that.
Yeah, well,
I lost that there.
Well, no, I think it should be viewing for everyone. There would be a lot less of these transgender, whatever. Fucking
agree wholeheartedly. I do
not. Go watch Two Girls, One Cup. Go do that.
Nope, that's not that either. Nope.
You don't know what that is?
Chris, you tell me later.
Oh no, I'm aware of what it is in concept, but I have never been to that website and never planned to be on that website.
Is that a tube girl? Is that the same thing as two tub girl?
Just use your imagination. Two girls, one cup.
Can we please just
use your imagination?
I'm not sure what I want to girls, one cup. It's terrible.
No, seriously, guys, you gotta understand what the fuck they're butchering men, butchering. If you watch this kind of it's animated process of what they do, and the best I was reading like what they do there. This is in Korea, where a lot of these people go and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. But oh my god, they butcher, and it's like. And then you hear the stories, what these guys, because there's stories about people talking about you should not do this, right? But meanwhile, they're promoting it. TLC has that stupid bitch with those parents, those Jewish parents that were they're not pushing their kid, but allowed their kid to change to do the sex reassignment surgery and cut off his dick and whatever, and then she was in pain whatever. Anyways. The thing that these people talk about, the wound wants to heal up. It wants to close up. They have to keep shoving fallacies inside to keep it open.
Right. Yeah.
This is utterly. This is what they should show in schools, right? But they won't choose to do that. So people, you want to be aware of how they butcher men? Go watch it. It's disgusting, and that's what they do.
Show your kids that. You know, they want to teach your kids all this shit. Just go home and inoculate them with that type of stuff. Be like, here, watch this. This is what really happens. You know, or if they talk about abortion, be like, you know, this is what really happens, you know, in abortion, or, you know, within this month or this month, late term, especially what they're doing now. Go ahead.
I've been through it all. So Chris knows about this. My wife had an abortion, and you know, it was because my wife had delivered cesarean, and the more times you have cesarean, a woman, it fucks up her insides, right? She was small, she couldn't have it naturally. We talked about it. We wanted to keep the kid, but she was so afraid. She's older, right? And so it's a danger. It just happened, and we had to go through that. This, like, you know what it does to a woman? It fucks up with their head. They think it's all, yeah, no problem. Boom, boom, boom. It's done. It fucks up their body. It fucks them up so mentally, psychologically. She had been bleeding for 2 years. This happened quite some time ago. Bleeding for 2 years continuously. Her periods were never regular and heavy, heavy, heavy. But they don't talk about that. They don't tell you that shit. It's like, oh yeah, fine, no, boop, 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 done.
No, it's a
and they're talking about doing it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a business. You're a product. Well, you know, also that Jeff Bezos needs his baby blood so he can live forever.
Right. You know, and like what was that thing? Alex Jones was talking about on Joe Rogan, where he's like something about I don't know if this is any true or anything, but he's like, you know, what happens to these babies? Like they say they get rid of them, but they like keep them alive and then bring them some other place. And he was like, you know, look this up, blah blah. You can find it. I don't know, you know, but I could see that people being like, you know, why would they waste that baby and all of its expensive, like, you know, valuable resources, essentially. You know, that's what humans are to a lot of these people. It's like a resource.
Mhm.
And if they could say a baby, they killed it, but maybe, I don't know, keep it alive and then, I don't know, keep it somewhere and then kill it when they need it or something. Like, who knows? They probably have like some island with a bunch of like aborted fetuses. Like, you ever seen that movie Island, where there's like, I think I can't remember that was that hot actress on all those Avengers movies, and she has red hair and she plays Scarlett Johansson. Yeah,
she's hot. Hold on, AJ, I've lost all respect for you.
Fuck off.
She's hot.
Did
you see that schnoz on her? She's got a huge schnoz on her. Come on.
Whatever.
Right angle. The moon is in the right, you know.
Get out of here. But whatever. Nonetheless, she is in that movie, The Island, and it's all these people that were like clones, essentially, and there's all these rich
right
that are using their body parts, and then they win. Like they think there's like a huge death on Earth, and then they win like a lottery prize, but they're actually just being killed and taken apart and sold, or their organs being used. And that's probably what
it's a Michael Bay film. Yeah.
That's probably
I know that film. That's a Michael Bay film. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's probably what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, you know, actually, Alex Jones mentioned that.
Certainly where they'd like to go. Certainly. Yeah.
Well, look at James Gunn. He just got rehired to be the director of.
Okay, so we're moving into new territories. So yeah, let's talk about that. James Gunn, a known, an accused pedophile, but there's been photos that have been published and comments made. It's well documented, and Disney let him back onto the project.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the movie now because it's gonna be way better. But yeah.
Oh, fuck off. I swear, you and Apple and Disney, like a perfect marriage, man.
Well, I don't know, Apple sits on Disney's board and Disney sits on Apple's board, so it actually is a bit of a marriage. So yeah, there you go.
Oh, you're such a fag. I swear to God, you're such a fag. Cut your balls off already, man.
Nope.
No. So I don't know if anyone... Nope. So I don't know if anyone's watched that new trailer for the adventure. Personally, I'm sick of comic book movies. They could have ended it with the last one where Thanos snaps his finger, and I agree with that. I mean, I think a lot of people in my office that did see the movie actually agreed with Thanos, the villain. You know, they said, yeah, you know, if he makes sense. There was all across the universe, people are killing each other, and when he went about and did something, of course, you mentioned once, Chris, well, why didn't he snap his fingers and make more planets and more environments? Yeah, they could have done that, but that wouldn't have been a good story anyway, right? But the thing is, this new movie, and with Captain Marvel, and I forgot to mention last time, on the last bit of the Captain Marvel movie, why I made it so distasteful, and no, I did not give Disney any money, was that the Kree. You saw the movie, right? So, AJ, did you see the movie?
No.
Okay. So the Kree is this spoiler alert, right? Spoiler alert. So the Kree were this group of shape-shifting aliens, and they were right. They were made to be like the Aboriginals. Oh, and they were the whole kind of concept. It was very hidden. It was very interesting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like Black Pill, Black Pill will probably talk about it, is how the Kree are like migrants, you know, because in the comic books, they're villains. They're major villains.
Yep.
And they come in, the shape-shifting beings are coming to Earth because they're being oppressed, and so Captain Marvel is going to save them, and she takes them to new pastures. And you could tell that the meaning of all that was, right? And
Lemon.
now at the end, sorry, go ahead.
It's let him in. Let them in.
Just
and
let
they're shapeshifters, so they can be whatever you want them to be, or whatever they want to be. You won't even know
they can. They'll blend in, right?
They're crypto Jews.
There you go.
No comment. I don't want to get my channel killed.
My
Susan,
channel.
if you're listening,
That's true.
well, both of ours. Both of us.
You'll be fine.
I
It'll be.
don't think Susan's watching this. No. So, in this new trailer, not only that I don't care much for comic book movies anymore. I think the market's oversaturated with that shit, and it's dumbing down the masses, frankly, because they could be talking about more important things. At the end of the trailer, guess who's there? It's Captain Marvel, the same pouty face as in all the other films. And she's the woman. She's going to be the superwoman to save everything. And you know what they're complaining about? You know what the SJWs are complaining about? The news story is from Nerdrotic and from Dave Cullen from Computing Forever talked about is because the SJWs are upset because she has makeup on. She's not being a true woman. Do you see? This is the snake eating its own tail.
I couldn't tell she had any makeup on. If she had any makeup on, it was like movie makeup. It wasn't like she's making herself up. I mean, look, here's the thing. Those people, people complain about anything, but let's not give somebody complaining from a Twitter account too much of a stage. Like, yes, somebody's going to complain about something. This is we're complaining. Like, come on. I mean, this is not.
No, but we're
triggered over.
We're complaining about it. But hold on a sec. We're complaining about it because the major actress in that movie was going around and saying, "I don't want white men to come to my movie theater or tell me what if my movie sucks or it doesn't suck." Right? That's why we're talking about it. If none of that shit existed, so you need a massive pushback for even one little comment. You need a massive pushback. I totally disagree with that.
Thank you for the donation, Rainy Steps.
I would have rather worn less makeup, or was it somebody stating their opinion? Let's not go too far. Let's not do what the left does and go too far down the rabbit hole for things that, tying things together that don't need to be tied together.
Yeah, well, like a lot of the movies today too are like look at all of them. It's women that are now being put in the place where the men are supposed to be. They're in some unrealistic role where they're kicking ass or beating up all these fucking men. And then anybody says anything about it, it's like, oh, you're just a hater or something. It's like, no, your movies have a clear political agenda to try to brainwash people. And it's always like, the men specifically, nowadays you watch shows like the white men are just like retards, idiots. The women come in, they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm just so much smarter than you. We're going to figure everything out and do all this crap. And you're like, this is not reality. The reality isn't men are the dumb bumbling idiots and women come in and fix everything because men are just too stupid. That's not reality. They're putting a false sense of reality. And I don't have a problem with women in superhero movies, but I really don't like when they change characters and make like a man into a woman now. And, and women don't want to see that. Women don't believe that women can kick men's asses. And this is going to attract like dumb, fat, ugly feminists to go watch these movies and shit, and then they're still gonna be mad because it's not. Well, this, that's why I love these stupid fucking these left-wing white liberals and shit, because it's like they pander as much as they want, but they're always still gonna get called out. Like Chelsea Clinton recently, she's being called like Islamophobe because she called out Ilhan Omar. She said she was being anti-Semitic or something. And she went to that vigil about New Zealand, and they're like, oh, well, because, you call this out, you hate Muslims, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, you can never win. And like these white liberals, like this one in the Marvel comics things, it's like, oh, these white men are this, and we don't want them coming here. It's like, that's not going to work for you either. Like, these people are going to kick you out too. Like, they're getting mad at like Will Smith and these people because they're not black enough to play certain characters. You're like, well, you're, what the fuck? Well, you're taking this role away from this really black guy. or they're getting mad at Bryan Cranston because he is playing a disabled guy in a wheelchair, and they're like, oh, well, we need to get disabled actors in Hollywood because they're not getting a fucking chance. And you're like, no, like nobody's gonna watch this. It's like people that this is a problem too, is people that don't understand business. They don't understand if you get somebody who has nobody knows who they are to be in a movie, nobody's gonna go watch it. This is why they get Brad Pitt to star in movies and they pay them a lot of money, or they might, I don't know, tan their skin a little bit, or vice versa, to play these roles, because then a lot of people are going to watch it. They're going to make their money back. But, nobody seems to get this. And they're like, oh, give these people a chance and whatever. Scarlett Johansson as well. She funded this whole movie about gay dyke. And she was going to play it because she's the producer. She produced it, got all the money for it. But then everybody's like, no, you're not actually gay. We need a real gay actor to play this. And you're like,
I think what people are forgetting about acting is it's acting. Like, okay, yes, I'm not really gay. No, I'm not really in a wheelchair. I'm playing a role. I'm a professional playing a role, studying the situation.
Well, we could
fantasy. It's not a documentary. It's okay.
Chris, what we could do is, those new transabled freaks, the next order of taboo freaks, the ones that they always felt that they were disabled. We could always, like, if we have any disabled movies that they can't find any actors, we can break their legs permanently and have them in the movie, right?
And that's no fun. So,
oh, no, but I mean, these people actually want to do it. I mean, there's that one girl that threw bleach in her eyes, and now she's blind permanently.
Yeah, well,
I just wanted to mention super chat from Rainy Steps again. He donated $2.79 earlier. Here, get some mosquito repellent for spring. So yeah, I will get some of that, man. Thanks again for the donation. But sorry, go ahead. Just had to throw that in there if I don't forget.
No, anyways, I want to just I found a funny clip, and I was thinking about Trudeau when I saw this clip. I'm just going to share my screen again, and don't worry, I got this all beautifully queued up, so no boomer talk here, okay? All right,
I think
better not.
I think you jinxed it with that confidence, that attempted flex. So let's see.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
No.
So this is I believe he's Ukrainian. He goes around.
Damn Ukrainian.
He's a Ukrainian politician. I want to see someone do that to Trudeau. Look at this guy stand up like he's going to do something. So what happened here? He was saying that he was pointing to this guy, and he had something to say, and he had wronged him. Look, nothing's going to happen here. They're just going to have an argument. Yeah. But there's other clips too.
Did you see where that guy slapped that teenager?
Oh, right. Yeah. Hold on.
That was the best.
Yes. Guys, I saw that. Yeah, because that I got it. I got it all queued up. I got it all queued up for the folks.
He just fucking turns around and slaps the fucking kid in the face like 2-3 times. And he's like, bam, bam. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And Frank Vaughan got mad at Faith Goldie for sharing this guy's tweet, because he tweeted this event, and he's like, I don't condone violence. I don't condone any of this, but it's the government's fault for bringing in a lot of these Muslims that these types of things happen.
Yeah.
And she retweeted this, and then he's like, Frank Vaughan's like, oh, it's so disgusting that she retweeted this, and oh, this is doing exactly what the killer wants. It's like, no. What the left is doing, what the media is doing, trying to take away our rights, that's what the killer wanted. But saying that importing a bunch of Muslims into your country, which that mosque was an extremist mosque, right? Multiple people were, and I'm not justifying it by saying that either, but I'm just saying multiple people were radicalized in that mosque at different points in time. That doesn't mean I'm justifying it, but things don't just happen out of nowhere. They don't just happen, you know, I don't know, in a vacuum. But go ahead. Sorry. If you want to show that video.
Sure, I'll show that video again. It's very classic. You know, I like to see real humans get at it, and the guy kind of deserved it. So let's watch this. I'll turn up the volume. Clocks him right in the face. Oh, he's tripped over. That was great. That was great. I hope the audience liked that one. Yeah, and this is a reference to that article. Right. And they call him a far-right Australian senator.
They like to throw that around. They like to throw that around, the far right this or the extremist that, as a way.
Well, no, technically we are.
No, but here's
Chris.
the thing. But here's the thing. It's a way they've made that language. They talk about dog whistles and, you know, things. Well, there's that kind of thing on the left too, where okay, far right. Okay, I need to shut that out. I need to ignore everything that person says. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to try and learn anything for myself. I'm not going to doubt what big media is telling me, or alternative media for those because those on the left are telling me. That's part of that language, and so it's what's basically a way of them saying, you know, listen to us. Don't look at things up for yourself. Don't look into this for ourselves.
No, but we are technically, because I think AJ, we're all aligned. We know where we sit, right? But what's happened is the actual ruler for where you sit politically has shifted so far.
Yes.
So technically we are, but I don't give a shit, right?
No,
but anyways,
they don't exactly say that Trudeau's gone far left. Like they just say liberal. And liberal is that theoretically in the middle of the political in Canada, to be clear, in the middle of the political spectrum, which sometimes leans a little to the left, sometimes it leans a little bit to the right, sometimes it's more socially liberal. And
yeah. You know what? At the end of the day,
and Martin fell into that category, but it's kind of in the middle. It doesn't go all the way to one side like Mr. Trudeau does, unless a Quebec business is involved.
See
Bombardier
the term,
or
like
SNC-Lavalin.
Right, but like, you know, the term, like they're trying to get like moderate. They're trying to be like trying to say like being a moderate is good and stuff, right? And they're like that's kind of like the implication with it, but in reality, it's not. Right, a lot of the times it's just, and the center changes. Right, at one point it used to be something else. Now it's something completely different, and there's only one right and wrong, and we're right. We're right. And like, what does far right even mean? It doesn't really, you know, these are just labels that they don't really make sense, because like, what am I, far right? Whereas a lot of people that they're labeling, like this shooter, is far right, but he was pretty much a National Socialist. And if you were really to break down what National Socialists believe, you can put them on a left-wing spectrum, because to me, it makes no sense that they're like, oh, you're for less and less government, and then all of a sudden you're really far right and you're for a big government and you're for fascism. It's like, wouldn't the logical conclusion of far right be just an anarchist? You know, an anarcho-capitalist? That should be what a far right is. But they come up with these far right, far left, and you got to be in the middle, because that's where the smart people are. Just a little bit of socialism, a little bit of, well, you know, we'll mix up all this stuff, and that's the good position. But no, that's what Hillary Clinton is. That's what these people are. They're the centrists. They're the moderates, you know, the corporate Democrats and shit. What is right is freedom. That's what's right. If you're for freedom, you're right. If you're for more freedom, you're correct in my perspective. And there is no moderate. If you're a moderate when it comes to freedom, then that just means you're for less freedom. Mm-hmm. If you're a moderate when it comes to that, because you're like, well, you know, I want less of it. So that's not, to me, it's not a good thing. But people, they kind of like use this as like a, we'll be moderate, we'll be this, and we can't. It's like, no, sometimes the extremes are correct. You know, I'm not saying like people, we want to stay away from the far ends, but it's like, you know, what do these far ends mean? Mm-hmm. Do we want to be centrist? Right. You know, what there is only one truth, right? And that I actually believe. I don't think truth is subjective. I don't think it's, you know, something that will change over time per se. You know, we can change our laws and we can change our morality. over time and say, now we think this is bad and this isn't bad. But 2 + 2 is 4. It will always be 4. That's never going to change. And we are in the right, because the alternative is always just less freedom. If you are for more freedom, if you are for less government, that just means you're for more freedom. That's literally all it means. So, I really hate that whole, the moderate, that thing is a whole fallacy anyways. It's not, it doesn't mean anything, because like I said, what a liberal used to be 30 years ago is completely different than what a liberal is now. And now we're so far to the left that if you go between what a conservative is in Canada and a liberal, you'll get a socialist or something. You know what I mean? Like the center of that, it's horrible too. So we need to go far right. We need to go far right. That's where we have to go. It's compromising that has gotten us into the situation that we are in. And once again, it's democracy, which is essentially compromise through a bunch of these people that often it doesn't work. This compromise doesn't work because we're always the one compromising. It's always the conservatives that are compromising their issue. Well, we'll have some restrictions on guns now. Oh, okay, we'll have more regulations on this, and it always keeps growing and growing and growing and growing, and it never stops. We're always the one compromising, and that's the problem. If we got to stand firm and be like, no, I'm for freedom. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but taxation is theft, and if you're against theft, then you will be for at least less taxation. And that because it's moral. It is, for me, it's moral. That is the moral choice. It doesn't matter whether you think that society can't function without theft, without stealing other people's money. Like, that might be your perspective, but my perspective is you do what is right regardless of the consequences. If you think, well, what if we stop stealing these people's money? Bad things could happen. Well, stop stealing their fucking money. Right? You shouldn't be doing that to begin with. And the consequences of doing what's right, we will deal with those consequences, right? I'd rather deal with that than the consequences of doing what is wrong, which hasn't been working out for us. This whole system based on theft, which is going on with the status system, isn't working. We're being replaced by our governments. They're increasing the debts, and it's not sustainable. They're going to create crashes. They're manipulating our currencies. They're creating inflation. They're fucking with us essentially. So we do need to try something different. Yeah. And saying that a completely free system won't work and completely communist system won't work isn't really an argument. Right. It's just like, what should we do to make our lives better right now? And I think everybody here would agree that probably a reduction in the state at the very least is going to help that. And maybe we can always argue later about completely removal or whatnot, but it really we do need to get it out of our lives. And it's just more freedom. Less government just means more freedom. That's it. And more personal responsibility. That's what freedom is personal responsibility. And people, they don't want that. They don't want personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. They don't want to have to worry about putting money into their pensions themselves. They want the government to do that. They don't want to have to worry about using different services for healthcare or whatever. They want the government to do these things. Mm-hmm. But we leave everything to the government, then they end up fucking us usually in the end. Mm-hmm. Or it costs more money for the healthcare that could be administered probably cheaper if we had more.
Well, they're fucking us because they're owned, right? So here's an article that Chris sent me a while ago. I'm aware of it. Toronto will welcome almost 170,000 immigrants over the next 3 years. Are we ready? Mm-hmm. So affordable housing, finding stable work, challenges for newcomers. There's no work. Right. There is no work. I contract, right, in IT. There's nothing out there. Right. Nearly 1 million immigrants will be coming to Canada.
Before you go on, Fred, I disagree a bit that there is work. However, it's the wages with these newcomers have decreased dramatically. in a
Right.
very short period of time for the kind of work that you and I do, for example, the professional work that you and I do, along with other things. Because, you know, somebody in our line of work, you know, you might make, you know, high 5 or 6 or low 6 figures, but then somebody else coming in might say, oh, wow, you want to offer me 60K to do this job, 50K to do this job, 70K? Okay, that sounds great. Meanwhile, the people who've been making way more money up to that point are like, I can't take that kind of money. That's cutting my pay in half. So it's a huge increase for the people coming in who are prepared to live like mice or lower. And for the people who have been here and established,
so
it's a different story.
I disagree with you because, you know, you and I work in similar fields. I have not seen, and the contracts have basically dried up. You know, the last quarter and the first quarter of the new year is the peak season, the tilling of the weeds and the growths from all of the whole year. The rest of the year is just like famine. It's like a desert, right? You know this. I've
seen those positions, and I have seen because I have access to that kind of thing.
Let me read
finish your point.
Sorry,
okay.
Okay. So let me just read this. Okay. So nearly 1 million immigrants will be coming to Canada over the next 3 years, and tens of thousands of them will wind up in Toronto, and the rest will end up at AJ's doorstep with his cat ready to eat. But is the city ready for the influx of newcomers? On the heels of the Liberal government's newly announced strategy to boost immigration levels in the years ahead, Toronto immigration experts are raising questions about whether there is adequate support for the rising tide. You got to read between the lines here. What they're saying is, oh, guys, you know, we need to build more support structures instead of actually saying this is wrong. We should stop this now. We should put a moratorium on immigration. So they're talking about family reunifications, refugees in a city where both stable work and housing can be hard to find. The rate of unemployment for racialized immigrant women is very, very high, says Catherine McNeely, the executive director of Newcomer Women's Services. Hey, guess what? A non-profit settlement organization. What did I talk about in my last video about NGOs? Yep. The latest census data shows more than 55% of visible minority residents in Toronto are living on less than $30,000 a year. Boo-hoo. Guess who's subsidizing them? When they don't get work, it's minimum wage, it's precarious, it's shift work, she says. We serve a huge number of women who just live north of the Danforth. 57% of the households have incomes under 40K. And to live in this city and BC, you need a 6-figure salary, a high 6-figure.
Hey, Fred, before you continue reading, when was the last time a white guy served you a Tim Hortons coffee?
Oh, I talked about that. So, you know, in my last video, I said I like to play a little game with them. I start yapping in my own language, and we all like, ja ochu malo, ochu daj mi kafu, 2 mleka. So no, and you know what? No one talks about the shit. Like, for example, no one talks about the other issues like the TFW program. That's still on. It's still going full, you know, helter skelter. And then what about all of these students that come here that instantly they can't speak a lick of English, and they pass, you know, they like my wife, they get 100% on an exam. They're great at passing exams, have no fucking clue afterwards what's on it, right? Like I said, she can calculate the square root of Jupiter, but still can't pump goddamn gas in her car. So, you know,
she can't drive either, I bet, right?
No. Oh, Chris, you know why I'm laughing, right? That woman had smashed into our car garage and ripped the garage. When we were renting, she ripped the car garage, and she kept going backwards. And I'm like, why did you not stop? Why did you keep going? Because the lever arm on the garage door had ripped off the front end of the car. And she's crying about her car. And I'm saying, honey, where are the kids? Oh, they're in the car. Why the fuck would you leave them in the car with the car running? You know, or, you know, she hit someone last year, and it's like, oh,
the car and the children. That's the obvious answer.
Well, she's Chinese after all, right?
It's a white BMW. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're terrible drivers. To be honest,
well, they are. No, but here's the thing: go to China, you will have a cat, a goat, a chicken, cluck cluck, right? You'll have an old woman with 10 tons of mattresses on a little bicycle. You'll have a bus. You have cars, expensive cars, bicycles, little kids on their skateboards, all on the road. And they are like kung fu artists. They never hit each other. But come here, anytime there's a rule or regulation, they don't get, like, I don't know.
Well, it's like, it's just, you think that, but like I was watching, like, you know, that guy Canada, he like Canada's worst drivers. He went and
I seen that. Yeah.
The Philippines or something, right? And you see they drive, like, it's insane. Nobody like pays attention to the red or green lights. Like they were saying, like, how many people die every day. They're like, they're like, it was pretty high numbers of people who die.
A lot of people over there
every day. And people, it's like they just walk across the street and they assume like the cars are going to go around them or something. And I'm like, these people have so much trust in other people. I'm like, what the hell? Get your peripheral vision checked or something. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's different cultures though too, right? And people wonder why like illegal aliens and like Mexicans drive so bad, and it's like because they drive on a sidewalk in their countries and they fucking go.
They don't care, but
they're crazy.
Well, you know, that's why I said the rules messes them up, because and then they also, I noticed what they'll do is a lot of Chinese drivers will, like, a signal on a car is the intention of what you're going to do. You don't start turning into the goddamn lane and then put the signal on as if that's my right to go in. And then often I've gotten into conflicts too with these people where they cut you off and you're just kind of like, hey, what are you doing? Like, and they're like, yeah, whatever. They just kind of ignore you, like, yeah, fuck off. You're just a stupid white guy. But, you know, I've had so much experience just being around them. There's a lake called Rice Lake north of Ontario. We go fishing a lot, and this rich Chinese guy bought a bunch of properties there, and he's dumb as fuck, right? But, you know, seems like a nice guy, fun. He likes to get drinking and party and, you know, have a lot of girls around. And we went to his cottage and he took us on his boat and we went fishing, and I couldn't catch any fish. My buddy, who's like an ice fisherman, couldn't catch anything. And these guys were just ripping out like walleye, largemouth bass. It was like just bang, bang, bang. And I go, guys, it's only like 2 per catch. Do you have a license? No, we know. No worry. It's okay. It's all right. Like, dude, you have a boat full of fish. What the fuck are you doing? And then, like, we were quite upset. My friend and I, who's half Italian and half Anglo-Saxon, we were a little bit jarred by that experience. Like, we just kind of wanted to pack our shit and go home. And then we got to the dock. There's these two giant.
I'm kidding. I don't care. Yeah.
Well, hey, you're guilty too, man.
And so whatever. Obviously, you know, I'm joking.
Oh, come on. I know the Wops are. He doesn't like his half of the Wop family. He's planning to be on the show next week too, by the way. So he's a boomer too. I have to teach him how to hook up his mic. So we both go to the dock, and there's these 2 garbage bins, and they're like moving around. It's like, what the fuck is in there? And they're laughing, ho, ho, ho. And they open one. It's like full of bullfrogs. It's like they went around Rice Lake and just caught all the huge bullfrogs. And then the other bucket is turtles, tons and tons of turtles. I'm like, what the hell are you planning to do with that? Oh, we take it to the city and we sell it to the restaurants.
Fried up.
And you're not supposed to be doing that shit. And Toronto even tried to put a ban on shark fin soup. Like, you could go to Pacific Mall, you can find shark fin soup everywhere. And what did the politicians do? The Chinese, they rejected it because the Chinese lost their minds and they were like, "Oh, it's part of our culture." Blah 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 blah.
Hold on.
I hate that. Go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
On the other side of Steeles, it's not in Toronto; it's in Markham, and Markham did pass the shark fin soup ban. But then the Chinese freaked out and they reversed it. So Markham is this pocket.
Sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead. That's it.
Oh yeah, fucking, and that whole shark thing is so crazy to me too, because like people are always like, did you see that article recently? How they're blaming white people for climate change and how it's affecting all these brown people and stuff. Did you guys see that article recently?
No,
fuck, I can't find it. But it was I can't find it off the top of my head. I'd have to go look in a few things, but I remember they're like, oh, white people are responsible for climate change that disproportionately affects black people and minorities and people of color, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, okay, first of all, the majority of pollution is coming from India, right, and China. And it's the Chinese killing all of these sharks and eating their fucking fins for no apparent reason. There's no health benefits.
Yeah, they just
to them whatsoever.
And they don't even kill them. They
yeah,
don't even kill them. They just chuck them to sea.
I've seen that documentary. They cut off their fins and they throw them in the water. They don't even eat them. That's so wasteful. And
is it delicious?
We're not doing it. It's some bullshit, ancient Chinese remedy bullshit that is nonsense.
Yeah.
And we're getting blamed for that. White people are still getting blamed for that. Like, no, they're killing the number one predator in the ocean. That's horrible. Like, we're not trying to do that. Like,
well, it's so
for killer whales. Go ahead.
So some things that people don't know about me. I went and studied politics in university, but I actually wanted to be a biologist. My mother has a master's in biology, but I just got lazy and I don't know, I was partying too much. So my grades were not as great as I wanted them to be. But anyway, as a failed biologist, I loved biology and it's the study of this. As a result of all that shark finning, and as a result of all the overfishing that the Chinese do in other parts of that world, because they're always encroaching, they're always going in other ocean territories, there's huge blooms of jellyfish everywhere. Normally these blooms would be controlled by other predators, but there's huge blooms growing in, and they're killing. Jellyfish are 99% water. And they can continuously eat and engorge themselves to large sizes. They don't stop. And, we're going to have an ocean full of jellyfish. But hey, cow farts are important because, googly-eye Ocasio-Cortez thinks, cows are farting too much.
We're all going to die in 12 years.
Did you see that girl in that when she met up with what's that witch's name from California, the senator who had affiliations with the Chinese? No. That old Weinstein, and the kids came to meet with her. I don't like Weinstein for any. Someone should Chris, if you want to look up that video and share it. But she brought these school kids, and the kids were like, "We're all going to die at 12. Don't you understand?" And Weinstein responds, "Well, when you grow up and you get to understand things, then you can come."
Yeah, and she's getting kind of frustrated with them a little bit. It seemed like, but it was it was funny.
But the teacher was behind them pushing that shit, right?
Yeah. And there was what is this thing just yesterday where all these kids are protesting climate change all over the country, acting like it's organic, where it's no, obviously all the teachers are you get to go out of class for a whole day to go protest, kids that are yeah, right. A lot of them, I'm sure, do believe it because, every day in school, they're probably taught the climate is changing. It's because of human activity, and we're all going to die in 12 years. I think people really think about what they're saying. That's crazy fucking shit to be putting that in the minds of people, that we're all going to die in 12 years, that we're going to have irreversible things. They're going to be crazy tornadoes. There was an article that was coming out from the AP news network, right? Fake news, from 1989, that was saying if we don't do anything by the year 2000, there's going to be massive floods, we're going to die. All these experts are saying this, and I guess it didn't get a lot of traction back then, and to make any headway. But now a lot of people more believe that, and they're using the same exact rhetoric. And we're not going to die in 12 years. There's not going to be some crazy shit. If anything, they just came out recently and they're saying that there's a potential that we could be going into another little mini ice age because there's a lack of sunspots on the sun. And just recently, this year was one of the coldest winters we've had in 50 years because there wasn't any sunspots on the sun. And they're thinking we could be entering into one of these cycles where there's not going to be sunspots, and we could be entering into a mini ice age. So us actually producing carbon could actually help prevent that. And not only that, I remember an article they were blaming white people for, once again, the mini ice age a couple of months ago, saying that when we came and we killed all the Aboriginals and genocided them, this decreased the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, and this helped push the little mini ice age into existence. So by their own shit, what they're saying, we should be pumping carbon into the atmosphere right now. And the experts are saying, they're like, oh, well, we don't think it is, and we're probably not going to be, but we are due for another one. And if anything, we could be helping ourselves by pumping in all this carbon monoxide, into the air and stuff. And that's not really the problem. The problem is pollution. We shouldn't be throwing plastic into the ocean. We shouldn't be polluting our waterways or, our air and all this other stuff. We think we all agree with that, but
but remember, but you got to remember that few years back, we were talking about population. Now all of a sudden we're not talking about population, and we're talking about climate change, but we're not talking about the other thing, which is pollution. Because it doesn't matter. You can throw as much garbage. Like my mother had these discussions with my mother. Good God, she's become such a nutty liberal. And it's hard to talk to her sometimes. She's like, we're all going to die, and we're going to destroy this planet. And I said, no, Mom, like, just stop for a second. Maybe it's because you had a cat and you got Toxoplasma gondii in your head. But no, we cannot destroy the planet. This planet's been around for a very long time, and it's going to continue to be around. We're polluting our own waters that we can't sustain ourselves off of, and there's too many of us on this planet. We're procreating at very high levels, and we want to bring the third world into first world status. We might as well need a couple of more Earths. Right. But in terms of the climate change, too. So I've talked about this before, that we sit in Orion's arm in our galaxy, and where our solar system oscillates up and down in that arm. And as a result, that also impacts the climate. So a lot of scientists talk about that, but no one ever seems to listen. They just want to. And actually, there's been some articles just recently about a lot of the scientists talking about climate change. They're calling it all bullshit. They said, we never said that this is a result of climate change. We have evidence that's inconsequential into what we really think is going on. We don't have enough. Like there's sometimes we have evidence that proves, and sometimes we have evidence that it doesn't. But we've never made a statement this is a result of climate change. This is just another product that they try to push to you, like the Whole Foods. Hey guys, everything's fucking organic.
Yeah, we have a population problem at the end of the day. It's not even like if you're for the environmentalism, you'll be for like reducing the population.
But
like
here's the thing: can we just blame Al Gore for stirring all this up like 30 years ago? His inconvenience.
Oh, you cut out there.
Didn't he?
Sorry.
Yeah, he's saying. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Sorry. Well, there's two of you now.
Join the video call. There's something going on there.
Hey, Chris, are you experiencing technical difficulties? Let me just ping him on Telegram here. Yeah, so I think he was saying he wanted to blame Al Gore 20 years ago.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff. Oh,
oh, there you are.
I'm back.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah. So yeah, he stirred a bunch of this stuff up. Maybe we need to blame George W. Bush, because if Gore hadn't lost the election, maybe we wouldn't have heard all this nonsense about the stuff that you're talking about, Fred, about the climate change stuff. But yeah, I mean, the goalpost keeps getting pushed about when we're apparently all going to die because the seas are going to flood us, and I think we don't know enough about the history of the Earth and our universe to be able to really know what the impacts are of things like what you just discussed about where we really stand in our galaxy, and how the true history of the Earth and its climate beyond the last 200 years.
My kids at my school had Earth Day. It was just not too long ago, right? Earth Hour or whatever. Turn off all your. So I told my daughter to go to school. I said, yeah, what my dad's, because they had to ask, what are you guys doing for your family to do for Earth Hour? And I really did this because I'm just such a shithead, right? But I said, yeah, tell your teacher this is what we plan to do. We're going to turn on every electronic device. I'm going to put the Christmas lights on. I'm going to be running both cars, my generators, my lawnmower, charging up all my devices, and I will have every light in the house on with the stove, washing machine, and dryer. Of course, it's going to hurt me with my bill, but just a point. And the teacher just put her in the corner at the back of the seat. It's like, okay, you guys, you're not understanding why this is so bad, right? You know, my daughter is black pilled as this can be, right? Anyways, I just wanted to add that.
And then
Green Steps gave me $2.79 for a refugee fund, because I'm going to be setting one up for refugees of, like, I don't know, South Africa probably soon. So, you know, I'm going to be taking in those refugees, maybe a few Syrians, I guess, just to diversify it or something. But yeah, thank you for the donation, man. I appreciate it.
AJ, you mentioned the population piece.
Right.
I keep hearing about the population piece, and I'm just thinking, that as we have more, and then maybe this is me being naive, of course, especially what I talked about earlier about greed, but as we have the technology to distribute resources around the world and people and whatnot, and even to more remote places where people already are, do we really have a population issue, or is it like a resource distribution issue when it comes to making
the whole problem is the resource distribution to begin with? We shouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that we're creating a problem that is going to be way worse than what it would have been if we just left things alone. You know, we try to go and put democracy in these countries to help them or whatever. But even like, you know, we give a bunch of foreign aid to countries and we think we're helping them. But really that doesn't help them, because now the leaders of that country have no incentive anymore to listen to the people, because they're not paying them. They're not relying on their people. So that government has even less incentive to do anything for them. Mm-hmm. And also the largest population boom in the world right now is going on in Africa. And if you look at everybody else and all the other groups of people, like their populations are kind of stabilizing, even going down, most people, because the more advanced a culture becomes, typically, I'm not saying advanced, like, you know, I'm just saying in terms of wealth or whatever, the wealthier any group gets, regardless of race, their population diminishes and gets smaller, right? Mm-hmm. But because we have this huge redistribution of wealth going on, we're sending hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars to countries like Africa, and we're breeding a problem that's going to spill over because our systems are not stable themselves, and the money that we're giving them one day could be worth nothing, could go away because our societies destabilize, and that's going to really fuck them over, because now they grew up, they've been dependent on Western resources pretty much for their survival for so many years. And when that shit gets cut off really quickly because our society is destabilized and we no longer have the money, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? Some of these women have 8 kids on average. That's the average population growth in Africa right now. It's ridiculous. It's insane. 8 kids. And the only way that they can sustain themselves right now, is because of the Western money that we're giving. It's just like what we're doing to the Aboriginal population in Canada. We think we're helping them by giving them money and welfare. No, we're destroying them. And when things go to shit in Canada, they're going to be really fucked, because they're not going to have any skills or abilities to take care of themselves. Just like all the people in Africa, when we stop giving, they're going to be fucked. And there's going to be massive death and starvation. And you're going to see a huge mad rush of these people trying to get into Europe. It's going to be more desperate than it is right now. where people, you know, it's bad. It's a bad situation that is in their countries, but it's going to get even worse. It's going to get much worse. And we're just fueling this problem. And we're bringing people from the third world that on average use less resources, produce less carbon, and bringing them to the first world, where now they're producing 5 to 10 times the amount of carbon. They're using more resources. And, you know, the different countries don't have the same respect necessarily for nature as Western countries do. And we went through a point in time where we did pollute a lot, and it helped us further our economies and get to the position that we are in now with the Industrial Revolution and all that, where it's really dirty. And what they're saying in these countries is like, hey, you got your time to pump all this crap on into the environment and pollute all the oceans and to make yourselves rich. Let us become rich and stuff too. So, you know, they're going to do that almost regardless, but us giving them money isn't going to do any better. You know, us buying oil from Saudi Arabia when we could be producing it ourselves. You know, we need to stop intervening with the rest of the world and stuff. And because it doesn't help them, you know, not giving money to people never helps them. It just makes them dependent, and then that makes them bitter and angry towards you. You know, have you ever given money to people and they owe you later? They're mean to you and they're like a dick to you. And you're like, what the fuck, man? I've given you all this money. And now, you know, because they're not paying you back, they start to kind of, you know, this is how people get. They get resentful the more money that they get. That's when they start getting a chip on their shoulder and all that crap. And, you know, it's just we're destabilizing things. And when things hit the fan, it's going to be really, really bad for those people. And it's going to be really bad for everybody because, you know, they didn't build up their populations to that extent on merit, right? That you know what I mean? Like they didn't get to this 2-3 billion population off of being really good with their money to produce a bunch of kids. It was because Western countries give a bunch of money and then they don't have the same type of, they don't care. They're going to have 8 kids, whether they're poor or not, whether they have the resources to send them to school or not. Whereas in Western countries, in this culture, people, they don't want to have 8 kids that they can't pay for. They don't want to have that many kids, which they shouldn't. Which, if you really think about it, if you want to be a good parent, and you can't, it's hard to be a good parent to 10 kids. Like I have a relative. I have one of my aunties, she has 10, 11 kids, right? And she is a great parent. They all seem, I'm not saying you can't be, I'm not saying it's impossible, but you know, raising maybe 2 or 3 or 4 kids at the most is probably better for civilization, because now you can actually, there's only 2 parents, there's only 2, you only have so much time in a day. And if you have 10 kids, you can only spend so much time with each and every one of them. It would be better if people did have less kids so they could focus more on those children, make them into, you know, good contributing members of society. You know, it's the R versus K selected strategy. We could breed like rabbits and then to reach the point where there's no more resources to sustain our population. So we go through a huge famine, which is what is happening right now. This is what is happening. Or we could be smarter, like wolves and other animals that don't have too many fucking kids that they can't sustain because the environment is not going to be able to sustain it. And yeah, we have lots of room. People are like, you know, we got lots of room. Yeah, we could fit the whole population in one state, all 7 billion people. But it doesn't mean we have the necessary resources to pay for all these people or to feed all these people. You know, we're going to have to go on vegan diets to sustain our population. So we're going to have a bunch of sickly people eating beans and rice because there's not enough meat to go around for everybody. So we're going to be eating fake fucking meat because we can't produce enough animals, right? Like I was saying, that's why they're promoting veganism and all these people, because they're like, oh, we're not going to have like really enough food for everybody. We're going to have to like eat these simple carbs and, you know, produce a bunch of this low quality food to feed the masses, right? And that's not going to change. We're not going to like all of a sudden start producing tons more meat, because that does take up a lot more land. It does produce more pollution and stuff. So the more people we have, the more land we're going to need, the more animals we're going to need, the more they're going to shit in water. Like, that's just what's going to happen. So we do need to, I don't think we should do it we shouldn't kill anybody. We shouldn't do anything like that. But if you just stop the redistribution of wealth, things will start to work themselves out. They'll start to balance. And I'm not saying cut off the money from Africa and these countries immediately, because I don't want to see all these people go through massive debt. That's bullshit. That's not fair. And we created that problem in these countries. We have some responsibility for it, so it should be eased down. But we need to do this now before it's too late, because the system is going to collapse. But go. Sorry, I went on a huge rant there, but go ahead.
So I totally agree with you. And the other thing that no one's talking about is diseases that we're introducing into the country.
Right.
Ebola and tuberculosis is another one, meningitis. And a lot of these countries that they're coming from.
You also have people doing it to themselves by not vaccinating their kids and bringing back things like measles and polio. Like, it's ridiculous, right? That's right. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
That is a part of it, right? I mean, and it's that distrust of the government. Why did that build up, right? But the other part of it, because of immigration, we are bringing other diseases. I mean, if you look at the Aztecs, right, like they were wiped out by the Spanish, bringing in diseases that these people weren't normally exposed to. So that's another thing to think about. But also the other things that's happening in our environment, if you look at the CBC, which has been promoting this several times on repeated shows on their network, is eating insects. I don't know if you guys seen this, but the Star's written articles about it. The Globe and Mail, that insect is the insects we should be focusing on eating, because what are they really trying to say? Why are they pushing bugs on us, right? Oh, look at, crickets with chocolate and crickets, mixed in with macaroni is really great. It's because there's not enough food to really go around. I mean,
right.
Not in the sense if we try to bring everybody into the first world status, and it's just not going to work. It's not functional in that way.
Exactly.
So.
And they can't sustain first world fucking civilizations. That's something that people really got to understand. It's like, we're never going to, you try instituting democracy in the Middle East, they're going to vote in the Muslim Brotherhood. They're going to do that shit. You need an average, average IQ of a certain height, of a certain, 90% or 95 to 100, to even have like a functional government or whatever, somewhat functional government, somewhat functional like rights and stuff. But if you look at countries that don't have this, you're and that's the problem. We're importing that, and that's just biology at the end of the day. And and that's the thing. We need to start analyzing this and doing studies on intelligence and trying to figure this stuff out. But it's really hard to. You get called a racist every time you do, and it's hard to get funding.
Wear it as a badge. Wear it as a badge. I wear it. Somebody calls me racist, I go, thank you.
I agree, but I'm saying the actual scientists that are doing the research in this often get their funding removed. There's not government grants going to this stuff. Only in China, because they are living in a homogenous culture where they don't have to worry about offending a bunch of other people in their country, or they just don't give a shit, right? Which we should also be in that. I agree with you. We should also be like that, but they do. And they use it to be like, to divide people when it's not dividing. What's really dividing people is not telling the truth, because all differences right now are being blamed on discrimination, on white people being racist, when all differences, a lot of the times you can ascribe some prejudice and racism to some things, especially in the past. That was a bigger aspect of it and whatnot. But oftentimes the differences aligned with the different average IQs in populations. And it's not racism and prejudice and whatnot that is keeping people at different levels of the educational system or whatever. It just has to do oftentimes with biology. And if we told the truth, that would probably diffuse a lot, because it's like, hey, we're not blaming white people anymore for all the bad thing and wrong and ills, because it doesn't even make sense anyways, because Asians always do better than us. But still, I don't know, we put them there just to fool people or something. I don't know. They're honorary white people, but yeah, you know, it's stupid shit. But go ahead.
I think it's interesting that some of these people who, it's like they come and they immediately want to try to make the first world as much like the third world they left behind as possible, ignoring the fact that where they came from was a shithole. And
right.
They should learn from, okay, I left that place, I left that war-torn, oppressed, whatever, so maybe I shouldn't go to where everybody, or go and coming in and getting comfortable and then leaving later is a different story, but going in and staying in my ghetto being a mono ethnic community where everybody speaks my language and I have no reason to acclimatize and learn anything different and be radicalized for any other way. Or, you know, maybe I have no reason to go and learn more about this place that I am now, other than, you know, going to work and going home if I have a job at all. They just kind of want to make things the way they are. And what's going to happen with the way they were, and eventually what's going to happen is, if they continue that way, you're going to start, and you're already starting to see people using our system, using the system of the country as they become citizens, putting people into office who reflect the values that they want to have. I see Day Off just mentioned there. Come here in Brampton and you will see Day Off. I was just thinking of Brampton as I was saying the words about the elected officials out in Brampton and in Mississauga and whatnot, and in the western part of the GTA. How you have definitely a cluster of a certain ethnic group. And you certainly are seeing officials now being elected that are reflective of that. And some of those officials are now in cabinet positions. Also, I'm thinking of our Minister of Immigration, who I believe is from that part of... Is the Minister of Immigration from the GTA, from the Toronto area?
Yeah, they're all dual nationals, dual citizens.
Basically, they swore loyalty to the Queen when they became citizens, but really their loyalty lies elsewhere.
You know, like that Chinese, right? Like that Chinese politician in Australia that made a pledge to the Australian government that he was going to fulfill the requirements for all of its citizens, and meanwhile he still has party membership in China.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Are you guys familiar with the term behavioral sink?
No.
Okay. So this came from this guy is he's a doctor, right? He's a scientist, Calhoun. He did these experiments called Mousitopia experiments, and he wanted to see the impacts of overcrowding and bringing different tribes of rats that were grown in different communities, right? And he brought these together, and he coined the term behavioral sink, where what happens is the collapse of the colony starts as you start bringing in newer different colonies that weren't part of that original colony. Females weren't able to mature to term. They started isolating themselves. The males was the most interesting part, was that they actually started developing sexual deviant behavior, like male on male fornication, and like it just really bizarre stuff. Like they would chew on each other's genitals till they would, like, you know, come off literally. The whole colony had literally collapsed. It became like unsustainable. And that's what we're doing, right? Because we're very mammalian, we're very gregarious, and we behave in a lot of aspects like animal colonies that are gregarious in nature. So I mean, this is a recipe for disaster, and no one wants to address it. Now, I bring this up all the time because I have to. There was a guy named Travis Travis Druner, I can't remember his last name. Apologies, from the Nationalist Party in your area, AJ, right? And he reached out to Maxime Mernier and says, hey, look, I'll bring my members along with your members and we'll try to work it out. And he basically, not directly, but basically called him a racist. Yeah, I don't deal with alt-right parties, and thank you, but no thank you, get lost. Now, I know it's going to hurt his image and there's the whole play on politics, but why not actually stand up? I mean, why not be like a Le Pen that goes to a Middle Eastern conference and then someone tells her she has to put a shawl and she's like, no, I'm not doing that. If you don't like it, then I can go back on the plane and leave. Why don't we have people of character like that? I mean, fine, they do say the right thing here and there, but I would rather stand behind, if I had to stand behind a politician, because it's the system we have right now, someone that says it out straight, right? Like, no, we have to put a moratorium on immigration. Why? Because I know it's not going to be a very likable solution, but hey, it is what it is. We can't keep taking in people indefinitely.
That's true, but you also got to think about, like, what did that guy have, like 50 party member, like 12 or 20 or something like that, like in total, like registered party members, very, very, very few. Nobody knows who he is. I agree with you that the positions are stronger and better, and it's there's not a good option, right? I give you that, right? And the thing is, but there's something about at least trying to signal boost some of the things that he's doing, right? And for example, if you look at the way he dealt right now with the New Zealand shooting, he didn't say anything.
Yeah,
none of all the other politicians. Andrew Scheer cucked. He said something, and everybody's like, "That's not good enough. You need to say Muslims." And it's funny, right? You notice how when a terrorist, an Islamic terrorist, does something, and we're like, "Hey, say it's Islamic terrorism," they're like, "No." But then the reverse happens. They're like, "Say it's a white supremacist. Call out white supremacy, and say that Muslims were killed." And he made a new statement like Muslim. And Max responded, "It's like, well, what about all the Christians that are being killed right now? And how come you didn't ask me about that?" Right? And now he's like, I'm not going to respond to that or whatever. And then they're like, "Oh, but you did about this old thing in the past." And I'm like, good. I'm glad he called out Nice and these other Islamic terrorist attacks and didn't go in with the leftists, because even going in and saying it's horrible what they're doing, which you shouldn't even need to say, is kind of playing into their game, and you're almost taking guilt and responsibility for it. You see, whenever the terrorist does a terrorist attack, an Islamic terrorist, you don't see a bunch of moms coming out and saying how terrible it is and they're sorry on behalf of, and they condemn Islam and all that stuff, because they would be them kind of taking some blame for it. So we shouldn't even talk about it. I made that video. I'm like, this is part and parcel of living in a big city, and that's how you got to react to you got to throw that shit back in their face and be like, no, it's like, this is part and parcel of living in a big city. This is what happens. It has nothing to do with racism or anything like that. It's just this is just what happens. More people die in car crashes every single day. More people. This is not a problem. Anybody who says anything about it should be censored, right? And it's like fuck it. Like he reacted well there, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of problems. I agree with him calling out or saying that that's like racist. But I was reading it. He didn't specifically say they're racist or something. But yeah, I know what you mean though. There's not great propositions, and like you say, you don't agree. You don't trust any politicians. Right. But if you're going to support that one guy, right, you may as well just not vote or not support anybody at all, because nobody knows who he is. And unless you start some like memeing campaign to get his name out and get people to know who the fuck he is or to do something, then nobody's ever going to know who he is. And, Max does have a really small party, but he does have a little bit more reach. And if he were a little bit more hardcore, that would be better for him and it would work for him. If I agree with you, if he embraced that party and was like, yeah, embraced it, that would be better for him. There's no point of playing the cautious, playing cautious right now. We should go full out. We should not care what people call us, if they call us racist or whatnot. We should be like, no, we want like no immigration, or like it to be reduced by half, or like to like 50,000, 100,000. Because you also got to think, you can't just shock normies. You can't do it. You think you can, but that's not going to work. Okay, that's not going to work. You're not going to appeal to them, and you got to kind of ease people into things. Saying we want zero immigration right away, which is a good thing, I agree with, is going to shock normies, and they're not going to vote for you. But if you can kind of convince them about less immigration, right, they will start to see the benefits of that less amount of immigration. Then you're like, okay, well, let's get a little bit less. Like, it has to be done gradually. People are not just like, maybe they'll wake up like that, but you can't just go from like a white pill to a black pill, right? You can't just people will reject it right away. They've been pre-programmed to respond to zero immigration as you're a racist, you hate immigrants, right? But you can kind of ease people into that stuff, and realistically electing a party on zero immigration, it's an impossibility. But calling for 100,000, 150,000, which I think he should be doing instead of 250,000, would be a good start, and would I think get people eased into it, and maybe be like, okay, that's still a lot of people. Let's see how it works, as compared to zero, right? Because you really got to pretend you're a normie. Pretend you're a normie like you were years ago, and then somebody comes up to you and is like, we need to stop all immigration. Zero, right? You think about how you responded. Maybe you would have responded back then, right? You may have responded differently if you were, I don't know, slightly different back then. But go ahead.
You have to give people some, okay, we're going to cut immigration, sure, but here's the benefit for everybody who's still here. Here's what we're going to do with all of this about jobs, education, whatever else. There has to be some incentive to that. But I agree with the way people have been programmed. You can't just cut it off, but you got to cut it down.
Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
The answer is not increasing it. Like, it's just,
right.
But anyways, yeah.
Like, I believe in less government, smaller government. But if you start to say to a normie person who's never doesn't know anything about the right-wing perspective, about how it works, and they're just so brainwashed into thinking, and I'm like, we should cut off welfare. You're mean. You're a mean person. You want poor people to starve. You want this and that. And then when you say, I want to cut off immigration, they're like, you want to take away people's opportunity to get away from a poor country. They're just working. They just want to live a life like you and me, and work for a family, and work and blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, this is just programmed in people's minds. So it's like, it's difficult, right? It's, even that shooter guy, right? He chose his words carefully to affect the normies, and to maybe get to some normies. Not that I agree with his message, but he crafted it in a certain way not to alienate people, because people in all right were saying, like, how come he didn't mention Israel and the Jew or something like that, right? But he kind of did. If you kind of read it, he mentions it a few times. But that saying stuff about like the JQ and all that stuff to regular person would scare them away immediately and be like, you're an anti-Semite. You're an anti-Semite to say anything about this. But if you start to talk to them about immigration and how, replacement type things, maybe not even that right away, but along that lines, they can see that, right? They feel the immigration change. They see the difference in their mall compared to 20 years ago when they used to walk. We all see that change. And a lot of people are just not willing to admit it. They're closing their eyes, but you talk to people, and yeah, they'll be like, yeah, you look at the mall, you see how few white people there are anymore, and be like, yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's crazy, right? Most people I talk to, they're apolitical, and they'll tell you that, right? So, you can't just go right into the JQ and be like, name the Jew or something like that. Which I'm not even saying I believe in all that conspiracy shit either, but I'm not saying
Right,
it's
but
conspiracy. But go ahead.
the first thing that you need to attack is the subversive elements, right? The so-called fifth column. And like this article goes back, and I'm sharing the screen here, it goes back to June 22nd, 2010. Okay, 9 years ago. And they were talking about, CSIS was warning the government that we have subversives in our own government, right? He talks here about the Chinese, and specifically Vancouver City Councillor Raymond Louis, second generation Canadian, who is one of the several municipal politicians who have visited China in recent years, right? And then we have issues with what's his name, Hussein, and the other one, Iqra Khalid. Right? Like they're pandering to their own. We have so many. Our government now is a collage of different foreigners with foreign interests, with their pandering to their own in groups, and it's almost impossible to actually do anything about it. I mean, we can educate people as much as we can, but when we have so many other groups that are now being pandered to, it's a difficult climb, right? I mean, we all essentially could be skating uphill.
Yeah, there's no easy solution, right? And it's not going to be easy. And there's a reason why they're censoring the fuck out of us, because they know that social media and all this stuff has an impact and can change people's minds. And they're censoring us for a reason. And that's not going to stop. They're going to step up their game. They're going to do it even harder, because they want to win at any cost. These people are not going to be like, yeah, maybe we should start letting people speak and have like a say. And, all they have on their mind is winning. And if they can censor us, they will fucking do it.
Well, and the other thing is, I just saw in the chat here that I mentioned, like I on the video I did, I know you did a video, which was great, by the way. I love that video. It's just the city con kind of slap in the face with, this is a big city, and this is kind of what happens in big cities, part and parcel. I found that hilarious. Chris, you got to watch it. It's really funny. Yeah, but the thing that this one gentleman, where was he mentioned in the chat about the manifesto, it's been taken down, because I was looking for it myself. I brought it up in the video, and I was always afraid, should I show it, because my video might get my channel might be like terminated, and I'd be taken off, depersoned from the internet. And I showed the link where you can get it, but you can't find it anymore. So I was thinking, I might try to seek it on the torrents. It could be on the actual torrent sites to bring it.
Julie Mora,
want to look through it.
Julie Mora has a link of it on her channel, on her latest video. That video has like 20K or more views on it already. So it's like fucking.
Oh, really?
She hasn't gotten removed, so.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. Well, I don't know, guys. What do you think? It's been a long stream. It's 1:30 here. I mean, I think the stream really went well. Apologies earlier to the folks that were coming onto my channel with the technical difficulties. I'm still working out the little things. I was thinking, let's do this weekly, all three of us. I think we can drum up a few topics each week with all the news that comes out. I mean, it's good to be into this business right now, right?
I agree.
Yeah. And by the way, I think that I just checked Julie Mora's video, and all of a sudden it says forbidden, 403 forbidden on that link. So
there you go.
Too.
Oh, is it? Yeah, no, I had the link somewhere. I was reading it before, but
what was it called, guys? What was the thing called? Can we mention that on the stream?
The Great Replacement or something like that. I can't really remember, but I saved it on my what do you call it? My phone, but I just gotta like transfer it somewhere else so I can like but I'm not gonna share it just in case, right?
No,
I don't wanna get
absolutely not. But guys, it is available on the torrents.
So any last questions from the audience? Throw them in,
Or
let them
topics
know,
next
you
time?
know. Pardon?
Or topics maybe you want to hear us talk about
Yeah, probably
Next week.
next week or something.
Mm.
Have it on external.
Thanks for all the thumbs up.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody for joining and staying in. There was like solid 50 the whole time, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, we went up to 60. Yeah, that was great. We're getting through. We're pushing through the cloud, the effluvium of the lie.
Oh yeah, Julie's still here. Yeah, she said they took it down.
Yeah.
Chance for an
Hey,
early
Julie.
election. No, he's not going to call an early election. Trudeau's going to like ride this out, and he's going to use the media to convince the public, because it's so shady with his new bill C-76. He made it like impossible for other people to use Google and all this to distribute ads, but the government of Canada can still use Google and distribute ads and all this stuff. And I'm already hearing this on the radio. It's like, hi, I'm Justin Trudeau, and we're going to implement carbon because we love your kids, and carbon taxes, you're going to get money back. Oh, we love you. Oh, I hate Trudeau. I want to I'm not going to say, I don't want to get my channel taken down, but it's like, I hate his so much. It just bothers me. And I hate how people can't see through the fakeness of Trudeau. Not that it matters. All politicians are, essentially the same. It wouldn't really matter if we replaced him, because he's just a puppet at the end of the day. But just the smugness of that guy irritates the fucking shit out of me. And I'm sick of this. We think we don't have royalty in Canada and in America and all. Yeah, we do. We have dynasties.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Oh yeah.
Families that are like, look at the
Fords, Trudeau's
that education scam that went on in America. It's just the elite's way of keeping their kids in the elites, because when you go to these schools, these high-end schools, it's not that they have a better education. It's that you get to meet all of these people that you're going to be set up for life when you go to these schools. That's why some of these parents paid $6 million to get their kids into some of these, Yale or whatnot, because the connections that they make, and that is what's going to get them into the presidency, into high positions of power. So this is how they keep out the lower classes of people. And really, I see all these people that complained afterwards of like, oh, and you're complaining about affirmative action when all these rich white people are getting into university this way. But in reality, the guy who did the thing was a Jew, first of all, singer. And a lot of the people getting into these schools, and you look at the parents, they were a lot of Jews and Hispanic and Asian people as well. And once again, like I'm just mentioning the Jew factor because they get lumped in with white people all the time. And it skews the numbers. You see a thing of all these people and they're like, all these white people are the executives and they're disproportionately represented in these positions or in universities. When that's not the case, it's actually these Jewish people who don't even identify as white. So the real people who are getting fucked in universities are poor white people, because there's no affirmative action for them. There's some things for, you could say Southerners and that, where they want to get some Southerners in there, but clearly there isn't an abundance of Southerners and conservatives in universities. And if they do, they have to stay extremely quiet about it because they're going to be downgraded or attacked or whatnot. But, everybody there, it's either, they're getting it through legacy, they're going to universities, or there's this affirmative action that is boosting up all these other minorities above poor white people that can't pay these people to fake their kids going into sports to get into universities and shit. And, it's like affirmative action just hurts people of color anyways, because that's what creates the whole distrust of like, did you get here on merit or not, right? Whereas if we didn't have that, people would just be like, oh, clearly you're here because you deserve to be here. But as soon as you have affirmative action, you're always going to have white people or other people kind of like second guessing whether you deserve to be there or not. So that's what we need to get rid of that entirely. But, you know, like I said, like the only people being kept out of the positions of power anymore are poor white people, right? They're not getting elected. Try to get a job into the government nowadays as a white person. It's like, you're a white male, need not apply. You know, they're going to like extremist mosques in Toronto to recruit people for the RCMP because they need to diversify it up or something. So that just means less white people. That's what diversity means. Just less white people. But sorry, I went on another little rant there. Go ahead.
So no worries. I'm gonna close it out. I'm getting tired. I know the people.
Right.
Let's. We will do this next week. On a weekly basis, right? But I want to share something on my screen again. Apologies about a book that came from Vincent from the Red Elephants channel, and this book has been, what do you call it, banned, whatever, from Amazon. So if anyone's interested, I did buy it. It has been banned off a lot of sites. This is the book called Separation and Its Discontents Toward an Evolutionary Theory by Kevin MacDonald. I don't know what it's about. You can see I also purchased the Delectable Lie, but you know, I suggest people go in and purchase this book if they can while it's still available. So it's going to
Separation and Its Discontents. Okay.
Yeah, Separation and Its Discontents Toward an Evolutionary Theory by Kevin MacDonald.
Okay, Kevin MacDonald.
Oh, it's part of his it's part of his Culture of Critique series. I've heard of this guy. Very controversial. Some would say anti-Semitic, which may have some people and may turn off others. But yeah. Well,
I mean that just goes in, like, why is Finkelstein able to write the Holocaust industry, right? And I mean, this is the whole Streisand effect, right? As they try to take information down, everybody should be able to read what they want to read and make up their own minds from it. But like I said, I purchased this book because the minute he said, "Oh, it's been banned from Amazon," well, what is Jeff Bezos like? He likes open borders. Okay, so I want to read it more than ever before, and luckily, it's available on the Indigo.ca website until they ban it.
Right. You know, exactly. They don't want that type of shit getting out. They don't want that information. But yeah,
it's on sale, by the way.
It's on sale.
Yeah.
Can AJ even read? Hey, fuck you, friendly white guy.
Who said that?
I just pasted a link to the Wikipedia article about the trilogy of books he's written, including this one. If anybody's interested.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna ban that guy from my channel very soon. Very, very soon. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm not an infidel. Sorry, just reading the chat a little bit. But yeah, you know, I'll check out that book. You're saying it's written by that. You're saying that Jew guy, right? And yeah, they, you know, if you're a person of color, that's why it's kind of like, it's good for these people to come out and say stuff, because it's a lot harder for a white person to say this stuff. Not that we shouldn't, but it's a lot easier for a Jewish person to call out Israel. It's a lot easier for a black person to call out the bullshit going on in the black community. It's a lot easier for women to call out other women when they go insane with the whole Me Too thing, right? But you know, when a white person does it, you're white splaining, you're mansplaining, you're whatever, right? So it's not going to get through when we say it. So that's one of the also reasons why we shouldn't try to alienate people of different races. And when I do call for us remaining a majority, once again, it's not because I hate minority people and all that stuff. It's just because I think that's what's more stable, going to be better for society. And also, it should be our right to remain a majority in our own countries that our forefathers created specifically for us, not for the rest of the world to come and take, right? But nonetheless, sorry, I went on another rant. If you guys got any last statements, go ahead. If not, I'll send you guys off, and maybe I'll just hang around with the chat for another couple minutes and stuff. But so.
Well, thank you very much for helping our boomer friend out and
right.
Shut up.
I'll sit down with him. We'll put on his reading glasses and give him some cocoa, and I'll sit down with him and help him to get it going. So next week we can maybe host him on his channel. But thank you very much for offering your channel to let us have this chat.
Yeah, of course, man.
In the chat for hanging in for a couple hours. If you have some things that you want us to talk about or some suggestions, we're definitely open to them. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Not
everyone.
a problem, man. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, AJ. We'll see you next week.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
bud.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Peace.
Bye.
Take it easy, Chris. You're ejected. So I ejected him there. Hey guys, what's up? So I'm just looking at the chat. I'm just gonna read the chat a little bit there. Hey Faye, what's up? Good night, Gary. Hope you're having a good night. As long as you guys keep your eyes on the real problem in society, we will be okay. Oh, okay. I did one Friday. Oh, you did a live stream on Friday? I missed that. You don't save your live streams, old white guy. I don't know. All your live streams get deleted afterwards. You should keep them. I don't know. You just keep them online. Why not? Just keep them up. Have a good one, Rainy Steps. Thank you for the donations once again, man. I really do appreciate that, man. Every time you're on, you always donate, and that's really appreciated. It helps a lot, and thank you. No. Ban the Owen Benjamin's Bears. Oh yeah, well he got screwed over, right? Because now he's not monetized. So, it was like that was bullshit. Anyways, he's not letting anybody talk unless they're a part of his bear club or something. I was like, that's not gonna last. Let's talk about diversity. No, I don't want to talk. We all agree diversity is shit, and it doesn't work. Yeah, in your gun collection. Good night, T Nova. Have a good night, buddy. We'll get there. YouTube has not been sending me alerts. Yeah, they don't. I never get alerts for most of this stuff, but I don't even put the bell on with a lot of people anyways. I just go and some people I would just go back and I'll check their thing. I'll just type it in YouTube or whatnot. Because there's just a bunch of people that I'll go and I'll cycle through and see what they're they're making a lot of the time. But I don't know. Generally, so far it's decent the way YouTube does recommend some of the stuff. It works out decently most of the time. But yeah, it doesn't always recommend. People say that it doesn't recommend my streams or my live streams. It didn't give them updates. I wish everyone would say what they really want. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, once in a while. Owen Benjamin is a joke. Yeah, he is kind of it's kind of funny there. I think some of the stuff he was saying was kind of interesting, I guess, but I don't know what exactly he's talking about. I think he's just like listens to Vox Day and just kind of repeats what Vox Day says, and he keeps repeating. It's like, I have 147 IQ. I have 147 IQ. It's like, okay, man, like we get it. You're really smart, so you can see all of these things, but I don't know. I think that I'm not sure. Some people do a lot of shit for attention, but what are you gonna do with all these muzzies in my question, AJ? What are we going to do with all these muzzies is my question, AJ. I don't know. I keep saying, it's a small government and shit. Like if we can work towards that, and also we should ban circumcision. We should make circumcision illegal, And if circumcision was legal, then and we actually prosecuted it and we put people away, then and they do that in the Muslim faith, they do that in other religions, and then you can have a justification to put these people in prison or deport them, and they wouldn't want to come to a country where they can't practice their cultural norms. And you'd have a justification to ban it too. Like you could ban it by making the argument like this is wrong and this is, you know, hurting children that have no you know, say in anything, right? So you could justifiably make that argument on moral grounds, and with it not being, you know, they're going to construe it like Jewish groups and Muslim groups and whatnot. They're going to try to say it is racist, but you'd be like, no, it's wrong. You know, you go with the argument. Let's say like, we don't know what cutting off the ends of kids' dicks is going to do to them down the road. Like, you know, you're physically assaulting them as a little baby. They're like, oh, they'll forget it. But we don't know the effects that this is going to have. You know, I don't dislike the Chinese people, but I dislike China. And, you know, like, yeah, lots of kids die from, you know, botched circumcisions every year, which is bullshit. And what do you call it? Like, there's this one guy in Winnipeg, this Muslim guy, and he almost killed like 3, 4, 5 different people because he didn't know what he was doing. And these kids almost bled to death, right? Make unfavorable conditions. Yeah, right. And, you know, it's unfavorable conditions to them, but I'm against it to begin with. You know, if you want to do it, wait till the kid gets older and then they can do it. They can elect to do it themselves. You know, there's no point of doing it. We really do not know the effects of, you know, harming a little kid when he's that young. Like there could be psychological effects to doing that, you know, and not only that, you could botch it and they could die, right? They could die, or they could have erectile dysfunction. Kids that were circumcised have like a higher increased rate of being erectile dysfunctional. So, you know, you could fuck up their dicks for the rest of their life. And they're screwed. So, you know, why don't we just leave that alone, right? But you have people that are like, no, I'm going to do it. I guess Oprah wants to make her anti-aging skincare out of like little boys' foreskins or something. So she needs it for that. But other than that, do you dislike Indian, AJ? No, I don't dislike Indians. I like Indian people, to be honest. But I don't want them coming to my country and taking it over, and you know, they pollute a lot. They cut mine, AJ. It's why it's only 4 in long. East Indians are the worst. Don't know how we'll get rid of them. But thanks for sharing. You have 4-inch for skin. You have a 4-inch for skin. My IQ is so low. I don't get Trudeau. I see what you did there, Gary. Syria's free. They must go to home. Yeah, exactly, right? Syria is free now, so they should go back home. But that's the thing with refugees. It's like none of them intend to leave. None of them intend to leave. They're all going to stay. When they get here, none of them are going to go back home. Very few, if any. So, you know, that's what they need to tell people about refugees is that, hey guys, by the way, they're never going to leave. If you think that one day they're going to leave when things get better in their country, that's not going to happen. They're going to stay here. You know, fuck you. I can read. What are you talking about? Oh no, don't do it when you are older. A friend of mine did that. He was in pain for weeks. I find East Indians haughty. They were rude to me when I worked as a cashier and national grocer. Retardo is the most punchable smug face. I agree with you, Saint. Yeah, I'm gonna ban Tired Canadian from my channel. adopt to Canada or get out, my opinion. Yeah, well, you know, we can say that, but it's not going to work. But I agree with you though. Like they should try to assimilate. But you know, why would you want to assimilate with our degenerate culture? Essentially, right now, it's like I can understand why people come here and don't want to assimilate essentially to the culture because it's just full of degeneracy. And you know, those Muslims, they don't want to teach their kids to be little transsexuals either. So thank you again. Oh, thank you, Rainy Steps, for the donation, man. Really, really much appreciated. 279. Genie Energy, search it. Rainy Steps looks rich to me. He's rolling in the dough, man. Troll's funny. I know society is messed. Yeah, I agree with you, Real Kathleen. They look down on women. Do Canadian votes matter anymore with Trudeau? Hard to say. Yeah, right. Have votes ever mattered? You know, and they're going to matter less and less the more diverse our countries become, the more we become a minority in our own countries. Our vote's going to be essentially meaningless. And you look at America, they haven't won a popular vote, the Republicans, in years, and that's only going to get progressively worse as time goes on. And then they're not going to be able to win the electoral college vote, and that's going to be kind of like what's going to happen in Canada too. You know, it's like right now the country can the you know, the countryside can win provincial elections and stuff, but you know, now Trudeau is trying to import immigrants to urban areas or into the country to boost their economies or something. But yeah, it's just going to pack voters in these areas and eventually change their demographics. And you know, the people we're importing there have no history of voting for small governments. So we have no reason to believe that they're going to one day switch and vote for that. And even if that were the case, it's not right to have people replaced by random foreigners. We lose on city councils. Yeah, California is insane. It's totally insane. We don't want to become like California. That place is completely overrun. They give like illegals the right to fucking vote, to have like driver's licenses. Like it's so crazy. And you know, yeah, they elected these people that, you know, and it's all the illegal Mexicans that are there too were probably naturalized at one point, or were given amnesty at one point or another, and like, I am illegal, and I'm not like these. Like, yeah, you were probably illegal too. Like, but most Mexicans that are in America were probably illegal at some point. Were at one point given amnesty, but you know, that I don't know how many of them actually immigrate there legally. Same with a lot of other people, but they're completely destroying California. It's horrible what's happening to those people. But you know, it's getting pretty late, guys. I think I will end it here. Thank you all. I think Brown on Ontario. Okay. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it here, guys. Thank you for joining me. You know, I had a good time. This is going to last a little while, this stream, but you know, I appreciate all the donations. Everybody sticking around this whole time, you know, 40, 50, 60 people at one point, pretty consistently. It seems like you guys enjoyed that. If you want more of that, let me know, you know, in the comments section after the video, or you know, I don't know, go to my Discord as well. None of you guys go to the description below, and you know, join me on Gab Minds. Start using these things as well, and go to the Discord too. And then people can throw ideas there to me, share stories, sign up, you know, whatever, you know, discuss things, etc. But once again, guys, thanks again for joining me, and have a great night. Take it easy. Let me see here.